Hey y'all, how you doing? How has your Sunday been so far? How was church today? Did you go to church today? Did you spend time in the presence of God? What did you do on today? I know some of you may be watching the replay of this video, which is great. And then again, some of you are live with me, and we're going to have a nice little talk on today. I may rush through a lot of these pointers. Some of them are self-explanatory because I have so many of them, I don't want every last one of them to turn into a sermon. Therefore, you may find that I will explain some of them, and then some of them I may not explain. But I'm going to be talking about toxic and demonic communication styles. As a matter of fact, they are actually very, 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 very common today. Not only are they common, they have become culture. And I want to discuss that on today because, again, a lot of times what I found in that a lot of human relationships are destroyed because of our communication styles, and not just our communication styles, but the thing that backs those styles, right? You got to understand everything that you do comes from something that was institutionalized in your life. And what I mean by that, a, a, a school of thoughts that have been established. And one thing I've always said, if you went to a party, if you went to a gathering, if you went to a place and you threw, let's say, 250, 500 people in a room at any given time, one of the things that you will notice is that if they are in there long enough, you're going to notice that people begin to pull. So you'll start to see what you call clicks. You'll start to notice that people pull, and they pull because, and these are what you would call like schools of thoughts, institutions of sorts, because what they're doing is you're going to be drawn to the people who are where you are mentally, spiritually, morally. You're going to be drawn to where they are. And so, again, you will find some people that have healthy communication styles. As a matter of fact, I would dare to say this. If you come across, like I said, a party where there's a lot of people at, and you see maybe two or three people standing, off in the corner talking to each other, but notice that there are groups of like 20 over here, groups of 30 over there, groups of 50 over there. The healthiest people you're probably going to see is that smaller group because, again, communication styles tend to become culture. They tend to become culture because what ends up happening is whenever you are in a school of thought, or whenever you have a certain type of way of looking at the world, whenever you have really just a state of mind. And when we talk about state of mind, it's talking about the condition of the heart. The Bible says, guard your heart, for out of it pours the issues of life. So your heart, whatever you allow in your heart, is what's going to put you in a frame of mind. A frame of mind is going to put you in a region of thought. And within that region of thought, you're going to meet people. All right, within that region of thought, you're going to meet people. You're going to come in contact with people who think like you, who reason like you. I was on TikTok yesterday, and I'm going to upload that video probably Tuesday or Wednesday. But I was talking about, for example, we have a tendency, we're always passing through regions or regions of thought. We're passing through. So, for example, I talked about, let's say, if you were married and you ended up going through a divorce, God forbid. But if you were going through a divorce, or we just make up a character, we'll say Maybelline. Maybelline starts going through a divorce. Otherwise, Maybelline is typically a very healthy woman, very emotionally stable, godly woman, God-fearing woman, or what have you. But she starts going through a divorce. So she goes into the place of victimhood, which is expected, right? Because she's hurting, she's going through something at that time. And so she starts going through victimhood. Now, when you go through victimhood, this is a hood of thinking, a neighborhood of thinking. When you go through victimhood, there are people that are passing through. So she's just passing through. If she just goes and she gets healing, she gets therapy, she prays, she makes an intentional effort, or an intentional effort and an aggressive effort to forget, then she's just passing through that school of thought. But you got to understand that while she's there, because she's probably never been there, especially that deep into that hood of thinking, because she's never been there, in her mind, she may think that she's going to be there for the rest of her life. So consequently, while she's walking through victimhood, she's going to meet people who actually live, who are citizens of that neighborhood of thinking. And one of the things that happens commonly to many of you is that when you're passing through a region of thought, when you're passing through pain, when you're passing through some type of abandonment or what have you, when you're passing through these areas, a lot of times you're going to find people that you can walk with, because can two walk together except they be agreed? You're going to find people that you can walk with because temporarily you are in that state of mind. And if you meet people who are in that state of mind, what's going to end up happening is they're going to try to form a long-term relationship with you, which means that you can never escape that frame of mind. You can never escape that region of thought, which is why a lot of people form relationships and especially marriages in those types of places, right? And consequently, it becomes very hard for them whenever they do start to escape their husband or their wife, the person who actually lived in victimhood, the person who has no desire to come out of victimhood will continuously victimize them over and over again, take them through something, give them something to cry about. That way they can stay in that neighborhood of thought. That way they can never leave. So that's what we're going to be dealing with on today. We're going to be dealing with toxic demonic communication styles. All right. Toxic and demonic communication styles. And these are styles that you have likely picked up when you were in a region of thought, or catch this, you may be the person that lives in victimhood. I can honestly say it has become relatively popular to live in victimhood, to live in that frame of mind. It's become very popular. It's actually become a custom. It's become a culture. It's become an expectation, especially with American Christians, for you to live in a frame of mind. That way you can always say that God is bringing you through, that God is, he's doing something in your life rather than you ever arrive. And I think I talked about this on the last one, how most Christians are always using ing, which means process, but you never hear, or it's very rare that you hear a Christian who say, I have arrived. And I'm not saying that you've arrived at the peak of your existence or the peak of your Christianity, but I'm talking about completed a sentence in something, completed a sentence, completed a, let's say, for example, healing. You rarely ever, if ever, come across somebody who says that they're healed. Very rare. Most people say that they are in the process of healing. I don't care where you catch them. You can catch Maybelline, and she could be 8 years outside of that relationship with her husband, with her ex-husband. She could be 8 years or 18 years out. And if you talk to her, she will still say, I'm healing. She will still say, I'm healing. God is still healing me. If you catch her 25 years from now, she's going to still say she's healing. You will not hear her, again, because of culture, you will not hear her say, I've healed. I've gotten to a space where I'm content, I'm free, or what have you. You're going to hear her constantly say that she's healing because that's American culture. But anywho, I know we just kind of started off running off into the lesson or what have you. Like I said, I got quite a bit to give you. And because I have quite a bit to give you, I'm not going to break down everything. I think some things are self-explanatory. It started off, it was 40 demonic and toxic communication styles, but I actually have 50 that I'm going to share with you on tonight. I know that's a lot, but no worries. We're going to get out of here, which is why I wanted to go live early, but we're going to get out of here like we ordinarily do. But I want you to take a pen and paper. All right. I want you to take a pen and paper, if you will, if you're willing. And that way you can write down like number 1, 2, 3, write down some points so that you can say, oh, I got that communication style, or I don't have that communication style. Depending on how much time we have, which I doubt we have enough time after this, I may come back and do a part 2 and start teaching you on healthy communication. That's one of my passions. I've been talking about doing this for years, creating a healthy communication course, because that is something that I'm very, very passionate about. Anybody that walks closely with me knows that I am very, 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 very passionate about healthy communication. And that has a lot to do with the fact that I grew up in a household where there was very unhealthy communication. I'm talking about most of what's on this list I've probably seen in my household. And I not only saw in my household, but I saw in my friendships, I saw in my relationships, I saw in my community. It was just a common thing. But even when I was a young lady, even when I was a kid, I never liked unhealthy communication styles, because I always felt like things can be much more simple if you just talk about it. I've always felt like that. I don't think they're gonna be able to find my house based on the inside, not outside. That's when you have a problem. But nobody knows the inside of my house. All right, it was very few people that know the inside of my house. But going back to the thoughts, be sure to write them down. All right, be sure to write them down. I want to make sure that I give you these communication styles, and I want you to be able to identify whether or not you are communicating in that way. And the reason that I want you to write these things down, like I said, I may come back and do a part 2 where I'll tell you how to start to have healthy communication. One of the things that I'm going to say when it comes down to this, just be prepared whenever you start developing healthy communication styles. It's going to become a problem with a lot of people who have unhealthy communication styles, because which means that it's going to start to cause a lot of your relationships to begin to fail and to falter. So some of the people around you, you're going to start to see them fall away. But I want you to hear me when I say this. That is the will of God. All right. That is the will of God. It's the will of God that they would change and they would repent, and you could talk to them and say, hey, that's not healthy, that's not good. But if they don't want to go, because again, they may be living in a neighborhood of thought that you're passing through. You're escaping. God is giving you, even in this lesson, your way of escape. If they're not willing to escape, don't be silly enough to stay within that realm of thought just so that you can prove your loyalty. That is the craziest thing I've ever seen. All right. That is the craziest thing that I've ever seen. All right. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about it. All right. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to go straight into it. God said in his word, let your yes be yes, let your no be no. Anything and everything else is of the evil one. So I want you to understand that a lot of things that we overcomplicate, a lot of warfare that we go through, even in our minds, a lot of stress that we go through, a lot of anxiety that we go through comes from our communication styles. Those communication styles in many cases are based in fear. They're based in fear. One of the most common spirits, as a matter of fact, this is typically the strong man in most deliverances. You've probably heard me say it before, is the spirit of rejection and the fear of rejection. A lot of times you will develop a communication style whenever you're around toxic people. You will develop a communication style that is designed to keep them around. I'm going to say that again. In many cases, if you're around toxic people, if you're around broken people, you will develop a communication style based on the neighborhood of thinking that you're in, but also based on what it takes to hold on to them, right? So you start to notice that if I need to hold on to this man, one of the things that I'm going to have to do is I have to be quiet so that he doesn't get upset with me. I got to let him win the fight. And so that becomes your communication style. When you go get a job, when you go get a 9 to 5, or when you go to college, or whenever you go out into the real world, one thing that's happened is because you've been in that neighborhood of thought for a long time, you'll find that a lot of times it's hard for you to formulate relationships with people because of your communication style. So you may take that toxic way of thinking that you got while you were in a relationship with that guy, and you come out into the real world and you're trying to communicate that way to the real world. And it's sad to you, or it's frustrating to you, because even though you speak English and they speak English, you can't seem to understand each other. You can't seem to kind of find some common ground with one another. But it has everything to do with your communication style, your thought process, all that kind of stuff. But I don't want to go too deep into that. Let's go ahead and get into it, because I got 50 of them to give to you. I know I said 40, but I got 50 of them to give to you. And we're going to go ahead and get these done. All right, number one, over explaining. Over explaining. A lot of times what happens when you have a toxic communication style, or that is a toxic communication style that you develop from fear, is that comes from typically having been raised in a household with somebody who had trust issues, or been around a person who had trust issues, and always having to fight your case. You had to become a lawyer of sorts, so you tend to over explain. Number two, lying. Lying is one of the unhealthiest communication styles ever. It is honestly one of the silliest communication styles ever, because realistically speaking, I found that, excuse me, in this event we call life, you're going to come in contact with people, and sometimes you'll do something that you shouldn't have done. Or you may have something about you, or something in your past, something in your present that you don't want anybody to know. And so consequently, you may find yourself lying to people in an attempt to make sure that they don't judge you, they don't abandon you. Again, most of it roots itself in rejection. But lying is silly, because realistically speaking, telling the truth is designed, according to the word, to set you free. You will know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So here's the thing. If I'm walking along, right, and let's say I meet a guy, and I really like this guy. I really would love for him to, be my partner in life, and for us to be married, all of that kind of stuff, and I want God to get the glory. But then I started realizing that after listening to him, he starts talking about how he likes his woman to be absolutely pure. He likes a woman that's never been touched by a man. He likes his woman to be this, or maybe he says he doesn't want his woman to preach. He likes his woman to be at home, to be silent, and that's his belief. And what I do, instead of communicating and being honest, I just start lying. Right? I start just kind of withholding it. And yeah, it's crazy for women to be out there just, having slept around. No, what would happen is, you got to understand that me telling him the truth will set me free, because that's God's way of saying that it's not the man for me. All right. He's communicating what he needs based on where he's going, or based on what he's been through, or based on where he still is. He's communicating his needs, and he may be talking the language of bondage, right? He's stuck in a region of thought. He's stuck in a region of thought called religion. And so within his religious ways of thinking, he doesn't feel like as a woman, I'm supposed to preach the gospel. So I keep it to myself, thinking that if he get to know me well and he see I'm a good person, then he'll change his mind. No, it's still lying. And so my objective in that, let's say if he start talking, I don't mind having a woman that maybe she had one body in her past, or she had two bodies in her past, but and I'm like, yeah, that's just crazy, because I don't understand why these women just don't be respecting themselves. No, my job in that moment is to look and say, well, you better run from me, because boy, when I was in my past, Lord, you do not want to walk with me then. I'm telling you right now, because you a dude, you had your thought phase. Guess what? I had one too. And so at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, because when you build one lie, or you tell one lie, you're going to have to build a village of lies, and you're going to have to try to make sure all of your lies coincide, and you're going to have to try to remember those lies, and you're not going to remember them. All right. Well, he got 55. Right. Number 3, gossiping. Gossiping. Gossiping comes when you're stuck in a neighborhood of thought and you're tired of watching other people pass through it, and you take joy because you're miserable and watching somebody else's failure. You take joy in watching somebody else fail just like you're failing. And you're watching somebody else not be able to come out of a certain not just mindset, but a certain reality. So you find out that this woman's husband is cheating on her with the girl around the corner, what have you, and you take pleasure in that. And that has everything to do with you trying to distract. That's your alcohol or your drug of choice. You're trying to distract yourself from your own pain, your own misery, by focusing on somebody else's pain. That's where gossiping comes from. If you never know where gossiping comes from, it comes from a place called misery. It comes from a place called, listen, if I get stuck in this region of thought, then I become a busybody. So now I become like that old lady that looks out the window all the time, and I find somebody else that's stuck in that region of thought. And then we just look out the window and see who's circling the block. That means somebody who's not leaving that neighborhood of thinking, somebody who's actively trying to leave. Now, you notice that me and this old lady is in the house, which means that we got comfortable. But somebody that's actively trying to leave that region of thought, or somebody who doesn't realize that they're kind of stuck there, that they're going to have to give themselves to God to get out. So we end up talking about them, right? We end up talking about them and saying, oh yeah, found out he was sleeping with a girl around the corner. He was sleeping with the girl around the corner. And yeah, they said she was at her job and she broke down and she crashed out on her job. And they said that, she picked up one of the desks and she threw it at her supervisor because she was having problems with the supervisor too. That comes from a place of misery. All right. That comes from a place of misery. Right. Hurt people hurt people. Number 4, shutting down. Oh, it's going to get real good. No worries. I know we kind of starting off with the basics, but shutting down. Shutting down, especially when somebody is confronting you, having a conversation with you, and you have a tendency to shut down because you don't know what to say. Tell the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Shutting down is a form of toxic communication, because even when you don't say anything, even when you're moving in silence, you're saying a lot. Now, there are times where silence is needed, right? Somebody's cussing you out or somebody's acting out. Though there are times when silence is needed. But whenever you're having, or somebody's attempting to communicate with you, and you decide that you're going to shut down in that moment because you're afraid of speaking up, that is a sign that you got trauma or you got issues of control. All right. That's a sign of trauma or issues of control. And one of the things that you want to do is you want to get therapy so that you don't do that. A lot of times people that shut down in the middle of, let's say, conflict, a lot of times they start avoiding eye contact. They kind of drop their head. They start doing things like, finicking with their fingers and stuff like that. Why? Because where they've come from, they've been abused. Many times they've had toxic and abusive mothers, or toxic and abusive fathers. Maybe they've been in relationships with toxic and abusive people. And so what they do, they've been in relationships with animalistic people. Animals, I think about, for example, I got a dog. One thing that you do to a dog, or a dog does to another dog, whenever they're trying to intimidate. So, for example, if a dog is trying to intimidate Milo, it will stare at him. This is offensive in a dog, where it will stare at him to show his compliance, to show his submission. If he wanted to submit, he would lower his head. He would lower his head, and he would pin his ears back, and he would just kind of lower himself. That's his way of showing the other dog, hey, I am no threat to you. I need you to understand, whenever you are partnering with, or whenever you're in relationships with, animalistic people, people who have not overcome their flesh. Whenever you're in relationships with demonized people, a lot of times you start to instinctively, not realizing that you start acting like an animal yourself, but you act like the passive animal, you act like the fearful animal, and you start to kind of avoid eye contact. You start doing things to show that person that you're submitting to them. All right. Number 5, gaslighting. Gaslighting. It is a form of toxic communication. Gaslighting is whenever you're sitting up there and you're making a person question their reality or question what they saw. So, for example, if your girl comes to you and she says, "Hey, Tyrone, why did I see your car at Maybelline's house?" And you say, "You didn't see my car at Maybelline's house. So why are you saying you saw my car at Maybelline's house? What you been up to?" Because I've always been taught, my grandma always taught me that when somebody start accusing you of something, they guilty of it. What you doing? That's gaslighting. That's gaslighting. It's always trying to make a person question their sanity, their reality, question what they saw, question what they feel, question what they heard. That is not only toxic, but it's demonic. Gaslighting. Number 6, over talking others. Over talking others. That is a form of demonic communication. That is a sign that somebody overtalked you. And that is also a sign of you trying to control the conversation, over talking others. We have a tendency to do that. I think men too, have a tendency to do that a little bit. So, for example, in a standard conversation, you may see that, where your words kind of bump, especially if you got two people got racing minds, racing thoughts, or what have you. But whenever you see that it is a pattern with a person to cut you off in the conversation or to overtalk you, that is a sign that that person has control issues. That is an issue of control. It is also an issue, and I'm gonna call it out. A lot of times it's also an issue, not just of control, is you're trying to hold that person right there, right? You're trying to intimidate that person sometimes, or you're trying to hold them. You don't want to end the conversation. You want the conversation to keep going. So I've noticed, for example, a lot of times if you're talking to an over talker over the phone, one of the things that they do when you're starting to try to give the benediction, or they start noticing that you're not talking as much, or you start doing that. A lot of times they'll kind of overtalk you, what have you, and try to start a new conversation in an attempt to keep you on the phone. You got to find something else to do with your time. All right. You got to find something else to do with your time. Number 7, dominating the conversation, controlling the narrative or the direction of the conversation. Dominating the conversation. Dominating the conversation. That is controlling the narrative or the direction of the conversation. So let's say, for example, we are talking about the let's say we're talking about the whole Charlie Kirk thing, because that seemed to have been a major thing in the Black community at one point, right? Not too long ago. If we're having a conversation about the whole Charlie Kirk thing, and I say, "Hey, I don't think he was a bad person. This is what I believe," or what have you, but you believe that he was a bad person, and you believe that everything because you just saw some video shorts and all this other stuff, and so this is what just your belief system or what have you, and then you start trying to control the narrative. So in that, what you start, one, over talking, but two, you start to just trying to throw stuff in, throw evidence in there, constantly showing videos, not willing to hear, not willing to understand that sometimes you have to agree to disagree in order to get along. All right. Dominating the conversation. So now you keep over talking. You keep on using your inflection in your voice. You keep on just wait. Well, no. Oh, okay. No. And then you keep pulling up your phone. You keep pulling up your phone because in that you've already decided what the conversation, how it should end. Tabrisha, thank you for the Cashapp. God bless you, beautiful. You have already decided how the conversation should go and how the conversation should end. If I never gave you wisdom, let me give you this. Whenever you're at a table, you're not going to find two people who 100% agree on everything. It doesn't exist. It doesn't happen, right? We all are. You can sit at the table and you'll find that, hey, I have friends. For the most part, I can say I agree with them for the majority, but every once in a while you're gonna bump heads in some area where you don't necessarily agree. You got to learn how to not take offense to that. You got to learn how to not see that as a sign that we don't get along or what have you. I think, and I've said this before, there's beauty to me. Now, I don't know about you, but there's a few people who think like me. There's actually beauty in disagreement. There's beauty in disagreement if you don't have control issues. There's beauty in disagreement because you can laugh and say, no. Okay, so why did you think that? But no, I don't agree. So no, okay, let me show you what I think. If you got two people who are emotionally mature, who have healthy hearts, it's a funny thing. It's a funny thing. It becomes funny. She believes this. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, I believe that because so for example, with me, when it comes down to my parents, this is what happened to me. So she was raised with this, or she was raised with that. It becomes something funny. It's not war. All right, it's not war. It's something funny. All right. Next one, number 8, withholding truths or helpful information. Withholding truths or helpful information. Carmen, thank you for the cash up. God bless you, beautiful. Withholding truths or helpful information. That is a form of control. That is also a form of toxic and demonic conversation communication. Is whenever you don't tell the person the truth, you don't tell them what they need, because again, you're trying to control the narrative. You don't tell them that, let's say, y'all, you are having a disagreement with your boo thing about what dark matter is. It's just a thought that came in my head. What dark matter is, right? And you're passionate about winning. You got a problem with comparison and competition. You're passionate about winning. Your boo thing goes to work. You're at home. Let's say you're a stay-at-home wife, stay-at-home mother, and you end up, doing research, and you find out that your significant other is right. And this is just a light truth. I mean, a light example. But you decide, y'all have a conversation about it again, and you withhold those truths because again, you're so determined to win that fight. You're so determined to win, to prove yourself, to have a reward. One of the things I've said to couples whenever I've had to minister to couples, what have you, I said, don't lose your marriage trying to win the fight. Don't lose your marriage. I say, congratulations, you won a fight, but you lost your marriage. Don't lose your marriage. Don't lose your friendships. Don't lose things trying to win something. That's just pride, right? Withholding truths or helpful information. Number 9, I wish I would share this. I really do. I wish I would share this because some people need to see this, right? The infamous cold shoulder. That is toxic. It is demonic. It is evil. The infamous cold shoulder. I can't tell you one of the reasons why. I can honestly say this. The healthier you get in your head and in your heart, the less you have, you're not going to have a crowd of people around you. You find your trusted few, and that's that. Because one thing you find is that witchcraft, which is in the flesh, right? This is one of the works of the flesh. A lot of people have this issue. You don't put people on punishment. Amber, thank you. God bless you, beautiful. You don't put people on punishment. You don't give people the cold shoulder because the conversation didn't go the way you wanted it to go, or that the person didn't agree with you, or the person didn't give you what you want. You don't put people on punishment. If you've never been married, let me tell you something. I've been married before. It is a very, very, very hard thing to deal with when somebody is walking around your house giving you the cold shoulder. Now, it's something I think we can deal with when it's short term. But when a person masters that, when that's something that they grew up in and they mastered that, and they're just constantly giving you the cold shoulder, it is a form of control in witchcraft. It is manipulation. It is also a form of domination. It is evil. It is evil. It's something that you're intentionally taking a person through psychological warfare in order, excuse me, in an attempt to get what you want. And I've seen, and ladies, can I be honest with you? I've seen a lot of women employ that tactic in their relationships, and women in many cases at the end of a relationship, a lot of times we'll be sitting up and we'll be like, well, I don't know why he just kind of got cold and he pulled out of the relationship. He said that he didn't care anymore. And it had everything to do with both of y'all in many cases being toxic, or sometimes it's just you being toxic, where you kept employing that tactic to get what you want. You kept employing that tactic because you saw your mama employ that tactic. She used it on you. You saw her using it on your dad. And you saw her using it on her lovers. You saw her using it all across the board. And that became something you put in your bag because you saw it work a few times. Yes, it can work. But hear me when I say this. If it breaks trust, it breaks trust. So that person in a marriage, there has to be unity. In any relationship, there has to be unity. In that means there has to be agreement, because you can't walk together unless you agree. So you got to agree to love God with all of your heart, mind, and strength. Love yourself so you can love your neighbor as you love yourself. You got to agree that the word of God is true, but you also got to agree that you're a human, which means humbled man. you're humble. That means that you're flawed. There's a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof is death. You got to realize that. You got to come to understand that in many cases, that when you're walking with people, growing with people, when you're married to a person, that person is not going to always give you what you want. They're not going to always agree with you. And you got to learn to take it to the chin, because if you want them to take this is sacrifice. And sometimes in a marriage, for example, you can be right. You can be passively right, and your partner could be passionately wrong, where they become really loud, very dominant, and sometimes you got to be silently right. And you got to pray, especially if it's not something major, if it's just an opinion based thing, if it's not something that's really affecting your marriage. Sometimes you just got to leave that thing alone because it's not worth it. You don't put somebody on punishment, because again, what happens is there has to be unity. Whenever you start to give people the cold shoulder, trust starts to break. It starts to deteriorate your trust. When that starts to do, what it does is it causes individualism. So the person says, you're not looking out for us. You're not looking out for me. You're looking out for yourself. And when that person says that, then they start to think, I got to look out for me too in this marriage, in this household, because you're going to punish me and you're going to do it in order for you to get what you want, not the bigger picture. In order for you to get what you want, you gonna do this. So I gotta look out for me. A house divided cannot stand. It didn't say it might not stand. The Bible says a house divided cannot, will not, will never, has never stood. It won't stand. You are creating a divorce, an atmosphere of divorce. You are creating a spirit, or opening the door for the spirit of divorce to come in by doing that. Because again, you create individualism. If you notice that in the word individualism, you'll find div, which is a prefix of divide. It is also the prefix of divorce. All right. It's not something that you do. You don't give people the cold shoulder. Let's say there are some things that can be major, right? When it comes down to marriage or any type of relationship, there are some things that can be major that a person does that you don't agree with, or what have you. One, you got to talk about it. If they are adamantly determined, there are some things that are non-negotiables. I get that, but there are other things that, like I said, some things you just got to take your hands off of. There are some things that are non-negotiables, that you got to put your foot down, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that you got to give the cold shoulder. It doesn't mean that you have to act a certain way. You just have to put your foot down. And in cases like those, there's safety in a multitude of counselors. You got to understand, you don't go to people when it comes down to a marriage. And this ain't a marriage talk, but I want you to employ this in every relationship. But if you're talking to your spouse, and let's say they're doing something that is absolutely wrong, and you're telling them that, no, this is not okay. This cannot happen. This will not happen. And they're not trying to listen. Then in cases like those, whenever you know that, hey, no, this is a deal breaker or this is dangerous, you can stand your ground, but it's always good to have wise counsel. Wise counsel isn't your mama. Wise counsel isn't your best friend. Wise counsel isn't the girl at your church who be standing by the door. Wise counsel are the people that you intentionally, that are led by God, that you have set to the side, that give you wise counsel, that will tell you what you don't want to hear. That those people that will tell you what thus said the Lord. That's when you go to them and you say, hey, listen, I've been talking to this man about this. He wants to do this, and I can't. This thing here is hard for me. I can't. And that's when you get them involved. But you got to be careful who you give your words to. All right. But the infamous cold shoulder has destroyed a lot of marriages, right? A lot cold shoulders lead to cold beds. Number 10, weaponized incompetence. Weaponized incompetence. It is a form of communication. Again, it creates individualism, whereas you're constantly putting the weight of conversation, the weight of problems, the weight of keeping a relationship fulfilled, or the weight of everything on another person by using the fact that you have a handicap, or, it could be a handicap physically, it could be a handicap emotionally, it could be a handicap socially, financially. It could be just different types of handicaps. You're constantly playing a victim in an attempt to get somebody else to put the work in. Typically, when you do that, it is an evidence that you are either suffering with an Ahab spirit. People who have Ahab spirits, what they do is they use weaponized incompetence. Hey, I'm just going to mope about it. I'm going to cry about it. And if you don't put the work in, if you don't fix the relationship, it's going to fail because I'm not going to do the work. And they will watch the person who has the Jezebel spirit put all the work in, or somebody who has a Jezebel spirit in covert form. Somebody who has a Jezebel spirit in covert form. A lot of times we use weaponized incompetence to get what they want. So when people act handicapped, or they act like, I ain't got time for this right now, you already know the situation that's going on with me. You already know this or what have you. And that way you're always the one having to do the work. Let's say, for example, you are telling your partner, y'all forgive me, I'm trying to get out the whole relationship talk, but you're telling your spouse, hey, listen, I need help cleaning the house, right? I need help cleaning the house. I need help doing this. This is too much for me. You the one wanting to get this big old house and what have you. And he's been diagnosed with back problems at one point. Back problems at one point. Saying he had a bad back. And he starts to use that. He's like, you know how my back is, and you don't even care about that, or what have you. Yet and still he can mess up the house. Yet still you'll notice that he walks around the house and he bends whatever he needs to be in, whatever he feels that he needs to be in. But he uses that to get out of doing anything, having any type of responsibility. Seen in healthcare a lot. Yes, I can only imagine. Weaponized incompetence. I've seen it a lot, and I've had to, tell people like, "Hey, no, you can pick that up." A lot of times, even weaponized incompetence can be used at a dinner table, where you go to dinner with people or what have you, and they know, let's say you're financially stable, or maybe you got your paycheck or what have you, and they're not that financially stable, and they'll play the victim at the dinner table. They'll just be sitting there looking like, yeah, I'm gonna get this. I'm just gonna get some bread. Bread and a salad. You hungry? I mean, I'm all right. Weaponizing confidence. All right, number 11. Number 11, shouting. That is toxic. Shouting. When you're shouting at a person, using inflection in your voice, shouting is a form of demonic communication. All right. Whenever you're trying, because what you're trying to do is you're using domination and fear. In no case in your life should you have to elevate your voice with a person. Sometimes you may have to elevate your voice if they're doing something like putting their hands on you or they're getting in your face or what have you. But at no point in a conversation should you feel the need to elevate your voice above their voice. A lot of times I found that if you come from a household where that's a common theme, even when you have standard conversations where y'all are not arguing, you'll try to win, you'll try to control the conversation. I've seen people do this by elevating their voice. So you could be sitting up talking about some so I've been thinking about getting a dog. I was looking at I didn't know if I wanted a small dog or a big dog. I looked at Dachshunds, I looked at Doberman Pinschers, I looked at Siberian Huskies, I looked at this. Somebody who's come from a very loud household where, there's always screaming in the household where they've always had to scream. In many cases, they may say, well, I think personally, I think you should get a small dog because, one thing about it, big dogs, they can be, they've been taking their owners out. And you say, no, honestly, small dogs are known to be more aggressive than big dogs. Like, it's just the size. It depends on the dog. You want to look up the temperament of the dog. And then they start, no, because honestly, like if you get this type of dog, and even though y'all are not arguing, you notice that every time they're elevating their voice. They're elevating their voice in an attempt to win the argument or to win the disagreement. And you're like, yeah, no. I actually prefer a big dog. I don't care to have a small dog because I'm afraid I might sit on a small dog. I'm afraid that I could do something that would crush because I've fallen off of a ladder before, and I would hate to have a little Fido at the bottom, and then I fall off on Fido, and what have you. And they like, well, Fido better know. I mean, dogs got common sense. Fido better know how to get out the way. And you look at them, and you're talking about, because girl, because Fido about. Why are you raising your voice? Right, blaming it on being passion is definitely not passion. What it is control. Elevating the voice, shouting and stuff like that. It comes from being in a household where control is prevalent. I want you to understand that every region of thought has a language, has a dialect. Every region of thought has an accent. All right, has an accent. So you can tell when a person comes out of a household of control. You can tell when they come out of a household where there was a lot of control, because again, even when you're not fighting, you feel the need to elevate your voice. You feel the need to elevate your voice. Even a lot of times when it comes down to family members, because I know my mom was very, very, very soft voice. My mom had that, hi, yes. I can actually sound just like my mother, right? Yeah, we're gonna go over there. No. That was my mom's voice. She had a very light voice. I was loud. My brother was loud. My sister was loud. because our household was toxic. Even though my mom had a light voice, she, made her presence known or what have you. Then we were always competing with each other. And I remember one of the things that would happen is that in many cases, we would just be arguing amongst each other, even when we were having a loud conversation. And my mom, she would just get embarrassed and tell us to kind of lower our voice or what have you. And even as an adult, I have a tendency, and I really back in, I have a tendency to be talking and I don't know that I'm loud. I don't know that I'm loud. And so a lot of times, I've had cases where I've been, let's say, in a restaurant with somebody, and they out talking, they be like, "Shh, I'm sorry, I'm loud." And it was something that I had to work on. It was something that I had to target because it helped me to realize that, hey, that came from that household, right? That came from that household. Never should your voice have, if you feel like your voice has to go up, all right? Where were we? Number 12, changing the subject mid-sentence. Changing the subject mid-sentence. Again, control. You'll notice that most of the pointers that I give you are control. Is when you are so determined to have the conversation that you want to have that you change it mid-sentence. And a lot of times it can come from, depending on who you communicate with. Sometimes you can communicate with people who are determined to talk just about themselves. The whole conversation is just going to go about themselves. And you're so determined to talk about something else. And then you control. And in a case like that, I wouldn't control the conversation mid-sentence. I would just stop the conversation and say, "Hey, sis, you got a really bad habit. I mean, I want to talk about something else, but I don't want to talk about you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I know everything about you. I know your blood type. I know everything about you. But this is just it. This is where we talk about healthy communication. In that, what I'm doing as her friend, as her family member, as somebody that loves her, I'm communicating that with her. And most people who are, relatively healthy or intentional will say, "Oh, I'm sorry. If I do that, please let me know. Oh, I'm sorry. If I do that, please let me know." Because I don't realize that I'm doing it. Some things that you do it because you came out of the household, so it has become a part of you. And so now it takes somebody to help you to separate yourself from it so you can start getting rid of it. All right. Number 13, victim talk. Victim talk. Every time you talk to the person, they're always a victim. You're like, "How you doing, girl? I can't complain. Complaining don't do nothing for nobody." It's still a form of control. That's you trying to make the conversation about yourself, right? That's you trying to extract something from it, but it's also you changing the temperature of the conversation. Whereas maybe I came in and I'm excited about something that I got, something that I've achieved, and now I can't communicate that with you because every time I come around you, I can never tell you my good news because I feel bad because you always got bad news. You always got bad news. You're always going through something. All right, victim talk. Number 14, ghosting. Using your absence to make a statement. Ghosting. Using your absence to make a statement. That is unhealthy communication, and it can get you unalived if you get in a romantic relationship. I've told this to women for years. I said, you don't play in a man's head because eventually you're going to play in a crazy man's head. And you're going to find out that what was a playground in one man's mind is a landmine in another man's mind. When I was younger, I used to play in people's head. But what have you? Because, I was broken, and I came from a toxic household. And when it came down to guys, I won't say I played in my friend's head, but the guys for sure, I would play in their head. If I found out the man had ways like he would lie, or I didn't feel like he was honest, I would play games with him to get the truth out of him. You hear what I just said? I would play games with him to get the truth out of him. That is unhealthy. You should never formulate relationships with people that you got to play games with or manipulate in order to get the truth out of them. In order to get the truth out of them, you got to try to get them to trip over their words, and stuff like that. But ghosting. A lot of times what ends up happening is you decide that you're going to ghost somebody because you're mad at them. You're going to ghost them temporarily, and then I'm going to show back up and see if you learned your lesson. I've had people to do this to me. And for me, it never works out well for me. I have a conversation with them like, "Hey, because everybody has a pattern. Everybody has patterns. We all have patterns, right? We all have things, and your pattern is a form of communication as well. But we all have patterns. So you will have that one friend, let's say, for example, that texts you every day, 3, 4, 5 times a day, gives you an update on everything that's going on in her life. Then she gets upset with you. She gets upset with you. In the midst of her getting upset with you, she doesn't text you for 3 days. She doesn't answer your text for 3 days. It says read, but she doesn't respond for 3 days. And so in that she's kind of ghosted you. And maybe she doesn't talk to you for however long, and then she just kind of pops back up and tries to act as if nothing happened. As a mentor, I've had people to try that with me that I was mentoring, and I've had to stop them and say, "Oh no, ma'am, I don't do that." Because one thing about it is, I don't do like a lot of you unhealthy communication. A lot of times where you're not wanting to have face to face confrontation, not wanting to talk on the phone. No, I like to talk to people face to face and say, "Hey, that's not how we do things." When it comes down to it, you can't ghost me for a week or ghost me for 2 weeks because you're mad at me and show back up and be like, "Hey, no." And the first thing I'm going to say is no, no, no. Why? Because that's unhealthy, and I don't want to normalize that, because when you start normalizing that, that's when you become pretentious, aka what you call fake. That's when you become pretentious. When you get around people, then now when you get around it, be like, "Hey, that's so good." And in the back of your heart, in your mind, there are evil thoughts going on. No, put that stuff on Front Street. Put that stuff on Front Street. All right. Ghosting. A lot of times you do that in a relationship. I've seen both men and women do that in romantic relationships, ghost each other in order to teach the other person a lesson. And I say that can get you separated from your ghost. Because what ends up happening is you can make it where a person where you're trying to see how they function without you. You're trying to see if they're gonna panic without you. You're trying to monitor them and just see, am I gonna get, and which is witchcraft, am I gonna get a reaction out of them? Are they gonna blow up my phone? All of that kind of stuff. And then what ends up happening whenever let's say you get the response that you want, then you come back a month later, or you come back a few days later, and you're just kind of like, "Yeah, I was asleep, I was tired, I had some stuff going on, my great great my great great grandma's best friend's daughter's niece, her daddy died, and so I was dealing with that or what have you." And you were doing all of that to see how the other person was going to respond. If you do that to a crazy person, that crazy person may start to realize that they don't know how to function without you. They may feel like they were losing their mind without you. Eventually, they're going to catch on to the pattern of you doing that. And you do that to a crazy person one too many times. The last time you try to ghost them may be the last time that you are living in your body. Maybe the last time. I've said this because there was a case, for example. I don't remember the girl's name, but I actually did a teaching on her, but this was just a couple of months ago, where she was in the house and she was playing mind games with her boyfriend. Right, she was sitting up there and she was blasting him and he was blasting her. You don't do that to people. Right, you don't do that to people, because what you're doing is this constant, "I'm going to teach you a lesson, I'm going to punish you, I'm going to torment you." When you start tormenting people, you got to understand what you're doing is you're playing with your life, because not everybody can handle that. All right, not everybody can handle that, especially when it comes down to romantic relationships. You don't ghost people. You don't temporarily ghost people. You don't ghost people at all. You have a conversation. It's simple as that. You have a conversation. Number 15, hinting. Hinting is whenever you hint around without being direct. Instead of telling the person, "Hey, I didn't like when you said this to me. It really made me feel bad." You start saying, a lot of people just don't have any tact or what have you, and they just wonder why people do the stuff that they do. That's called a ministry, not a ministry. Open your mouth and talk. Anytime I have people around me that are doing it, I say, "So I see you got a ministry. I see you got a ministry." Open your mouth and just talk. Be direct. Just sit there and say it with your chest. Use your words. Open your mouth and say, "Hey, did I when you did this, that made me feel some type of way. When you did that, or what did you mean by that?" What you will find, can I tell you something? What you will find is that most people who are good and decent, they would much rather you talk to them so you can clear the air within 3.5 minutes than for y'all to go through 3 months of dysfunction because you had a thought and you were too afraid to be direct with it. Nobody wants to go through 3 weeks or 3 months of weirdness, oddness, when it could have been something that, in my experience, is usually something that's resolved within 3 minutes. When I say my experience, I'm talking about even when I was a young girl, I started doing that, right? I realized that you could resolve issues in a matter of minutes and moments, as opposed to allowing them to become long and drawn out by just simply saying, this is what I think, this is what I feel. When I was growing up, I found out that I used to get in trouble for that. But I found out that we're taught when you're a child to not be honest so that you spare people's feelings. You're taught, to, I'll say this, unhealthy ways are taught to people, right? Children, a lot of times, are instinctively, I say, like, for when it comes down to food, children instinctively, if you put a toddler, you let them loose in a room to eat, and if they were to eat, whatever they want to eat, most of the times you will find a healthy child. I mean, if you take the candy and all that other stuff out of there. I remember living in Florida, and I remember you can all you saw were birds, right? Just different types of birds, ibis, the Muscovy duck, the standard duck, the what do you call this? The moorhen. Oh, you see them. And what you notice is that they eat just a tiny bit. They don't eat to get full. They eat to survive. They eat to live. And so what they'll eat, and then they'll just go on about their way, right? What we do as parents is we teach our children, sit there and eat everything on your plate. That's unhealthy. Eat everything I put on your plate, and then you can get to the dessert. No, sometimes you can't give them dessert. Sometimes you just got to say, okay, let me put on the plate. So you'll notice that a kid will eat just a little bit, and then they'll run around that room. And that's not always unhealthy. Sometimes you got to make them sit down, but sometimes, that's not always unhealthy. The kid feels satisfied, and that's enough. And we teach them unhealthy eating habits. That is taught. Communication styles are the same way. That is taught, because, again, when I was a kid, I was taught that being honest was wrong, because I had a habit of doing it, right? Because I came up in a family where everybody was lying, gaslighting, and doing all that other stuff. And I was thinking to myself, I don't understand the point. If I'm gonna get a whooping, I'm gonna get a whooping. You're gonna find out anyhow. You're gonna whoop me, or you're gonna find out anyhow, and this is gonna happen. So I much rather go ahead and tell you. I also came to realize too that whenever I was honest, that I didn't get in trouble half of the time. I remember when I had I had a stepson, and I was married, of course, and I remember talking to him, and I told him, I said, "You won't get in trouble for what you tell me. It's what you don't tell me that I got a problem with." And he started learning to be just open and honest. He tested to see or what have you. He come back and he said, "I did this." I said, "Okay, now go apologize." And that's that. He started realizing, okay, there is no fear in being honest. There's fear in being found out. There's no fear in being honest. It's saying God wants us to repent. God is not trying to punish you. God is trying to train you. He's trying to mature you. I don't want to use the word train, but he's trying to mature you. I said, there's no problem when you come to me and you tell me you did something. Now I'm gonna correct you. And if it's something extreme, then we're gonna have to have an extreme conversation that may sometimes has extreme punishment. But if you're honest, what was I doing? Trying to teach him healthy communication, that you don't hide stuff. Because hear me when I say this, a lot of kids have given up the ghost prematurely because they felt the need to hide things because they were taught in their household that they'll get in trouble for this, this, and this. No, start them young. You can talk to me about anything. If you do something dumb, talk to me about it. Let me talk. Give me the opportunity to speak. All right. Number 16, chattiness. Chattiness. Whenever you're too chatty and you're just going on and on and on and on in a conversation, you don't allow the other person to talk, that's toxic. You don't allow the other person to talk, that's toxic. In that, again, you're controlling the conversation. And I can honestly say that's something that I've struggled with for years or what have you. I started recognizing it when my mother told me when I was 10 years old. She said, "You talk too much, don't you?" And I was like, "I know." And I kept talking. But I became self-aware, or I became more conscious about it when I was, I think, in junior high. And I started telling my friends, I said, if I get too chatty, stop me. And I've done that into adulthood. I said, if I start talking too much, or if I keep on going, stop me in the middle of the conversation and just let me know, or what have you. And thankfully, I've had people in my life that will say, "You've already told that story before," or "You already said that story before. You've already said this before," or what have you. But chattiness, that's overtaking the conversation. So in that, one of the things that I intentionally started doing was I intentionally will stop, right? I'll say, okay, I'm gonna get to this point and I gotta stop. What I'm trying to show you is that you actually have to train yourself. You got to train your brain. Whenever you develop the toxic communication style, you have to train. You have to, one, be aware of it, but two, you have to start training your brain to come out of it. Three, you want to make sure you get the community around you to help you in it. Acknowledge, hey, I got this particular problem. So I need you to engage. So if you catch me doing that, engage. Let me know. Therapy. If it's a trauma response, therapy is going to help you. You want to deal with the trauma and not the response. Marsha, thank you for the Cashapp. God bless you, beautiful. All right, number 7, threatening. Now, this is a broad term, and I'm not going to spend too much time here, but threatening. Threatening people with physical harm, threatening them with your absence, threatening them to withhold something, threatening. Sometimes it can be a silent threat. Sometimes it can be an audible threat. Sometimes it could be a perceived threat. Either way, threatening is an unhealthy way of communicating. Threatening can be an unhealthy way of communicating. Is when you sit up there and say, well, I tell you what, well, if you do that, well, you ain't gonna have this no more. I tell you, you ain't gonna see your kids. You ain't gonna see your kids. That is unhealthy. It's toxic. It's demonic. It's evil. Threatening. Number 18, using the unsaid to manipulate someone into a confession. Using the unsaid to manipulate someone into a conversation. So that means that you know something, but you're trying to, I would say, I think a better way of saying this is a segue conversation, where there's a conversation that you actually want to have. And say, instead of saying, like, being direct, you kind of segue them into the conversation. So let's say you say, well, you heard about Troy. Troy got arrested 3 weeks ago for running around downtown nude. You know, they said that he got back on that stuff. He got back on that stuff. And he got arrested. He got out of jail or what have you. His family trying to put him in a rehab. But he was in a rehab and he got sober. And they said he tried to be nude up in there. So they starting to think that it ain't got nothing to do with the drugs. You know, it's just some type of thing he's going through. But, you know, I believe it's because he kept cheating on his wife. I believe it's because every time you looked up, he was always cheating on his wife. I believe he losing his mind because he cheating on his wife. So in that, let's say that you are a married woman and you suspect your husband is cheating on you. You're trying to use that to segue into the conversation. Now, does that make sense? You're using that to segue into the conversation that you want to have instead of just being direct. Hey, excuse me. You've been doing some things that have made me feel unsettled. Like, makes me feel like you're having an affair. Are you? I can only ask you directly, right? But at the end of the day, you already know if you are, I'm going to find out. But I want to see if you would talk to me directly instead of just letting your yes be yes, let your no be no. Just give them the opportunity. Well, they're going to lie, they're going to manipulate, they're going to scheme, they're going to do that, of course. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you have to go into manipulative talk in order or get into a segue or to take them through a maze in order to get to the point. No, just be direct. Just be direct. Again, you're putting their segue conversations. Right. Number 19, selective hearing. Selective hearing is whenever you sit up and you try to control the conversation by only hearing certain things. You ever talk to a person and you're telling them something that they did and they're kind of looking at their phone and they're ignoring a lot of the stuff and what have you. And then you say something that they feel like they can use to accuse you. And they sit there and they say, oh, so that's where you were Saturday. Yeah, I told you I was going there Saturday. Oh, so that's selective hearing. So all of a sudden, and this is a form of control. All of a sudden, whereas we were talking about, let's say you married, your mother's interference in our marriage. Now you want to highlight the fact that I was over to my friend Tammy's house Saturday and what have you. So that's where you were. So no, okay, no, let's go there. Selective hearing. Selective hearing. All right, number 20. Giving partial truths. I'm not going to stay on this one because I do feel like I've already said this or something similar to this, but giving partial truths. It's breadcrumbing a conversation, giving people just a little bit and not giving them the entirety of things. I'm giving partial truth. Sometimes some people, you got to drag the truth out of them because they'll only give you just a little bit, but that's toxic. Number 21, Using sex, promises of sex, or withholding sex. And this is for married couples, because if you're not married, you shouldn't be having sex anyhow. But using sex, promises of sex, and withholding sex to win a disagreement. Using sex, promises of sex, or withholding sex to win a disagreement. That is toxic communication. That is evil, and it is wicked. A lot of people do that whenever they don't get their way, whereas they will tell their husband that they're not in the mood. It is something that is commonly done with women. Men do it as well, but it is something that's more frequently done by women, withholding sex. And realistically speaking, I would even say trying to have sex with a man could be a form of toxic communication when you try to replace having a conversation with sex. All right. Intimacy anorexia, I love it. Is when you try to replace a conversation with sex. One of the things that you'll learn if you're counseling a couple, a lot of times, if you find one of them OGs that's been married for 40 and 50 some years, and they're counseling a couple, one thing you'll find is that the men will say to the men, hey, or hey, you're gonna have to talk to her. You can't silence her with sex. You do have some men that would try to silence a woman with sex. Then you have women that would withhold sex until the man stops being silent, or what have you. Both of those are forms of unhealthy communication. Number 22, leaving the elephant in the room. Leaving the elephant in the room. That means that there's a conversation that you need to have, but you ignore that. Instead, you just kind of have other conversations, and you just kind of leave the elephant in the room. No, address the elephant in the room. If there's something going on, address the elephant in the room. Relationships, hear me when I say this, relationships are beautiful. When you are kingdom minded and you have a person in your life that's kingdom minded, relationships are beautiful when they're intentional. When you got two intentional people, be it romantic, platonic, professional, familial, it doesn't matter. When you got two intentional people who have made it up in their mind to serve God and to love and respect each other, relationships are absolutely beautiful. But toxic relationships come from toxic people. And toxicity, because there's no real such thing as a toxic relationship. It's just toxic people in a relationship. I was going to do a demonstration and I totally forgot. I wanted to bring some tea, some sweet tea over here, and a cup of water. And I just wanted to mix them, but I can use your imagination. All right. I wanted to mix them and show you, if you have a pure person that you got pure motives, right? Or they're pure, and you bring them together with a toxic person and you put them together, you will notice that the impurity from the toxic person will start to get in. Because what a relationship is, it's like your own cup in the center both of y'all are pouring into. That's your relationship. And whenever you're doing that, you end up with a toxic, or what you call a toxic relationship, because you're bringing unhealthy coping patterns, unhealthy communication styles. You're bringing all that into there because, again, you think that that's necessary. You think that that's the only way you're going to get the truth. You think that that's the only way that you're going to get your way. And hear me, that actually is conveyed in your relationship with God, because there are certain things that you pray for and certain things you pray about, certain things that you don't say to God because for whatever reason you think you can still hide stuff from God. That's why you have people that have the audacity to get mad at God. And you got the audacity to get mad at him because you don't know him. If you knew him, you would know that he ain't playing games with you. But when you have unhealthy communication style, you have an unhealthy community, you got a community of people, family, and what have you, that play games with your mind. You think God's playing games with you. You think he's playing games with you. All right. Leaving the elephant in the room. Address the elephant. All right. Number 23, withholding a certain benefit to control another person. Now, we talked about sex, but we can talk about child visitation, money, etc. Withholding a certain benefit in order for you to get whatever it is that you're trying to get, or to control the narrative of a conversation. That is unhealthy and demonic. Number 24, profanity. Profanity. Amen. Profanity. The use of profanity. Honestly, we call profanity what it is: blasphemy. It's you teetering around blasphemy, right? It's you sitting up there. It's like you're just kind of walking in a circle around the fullness of blasphemy, right? Because there is no need for profanity. There's no need for you to call somebody a B. There's no need for you to. There's no need for that, right? But profanity, it is unhealthy communication. It's usually whenever you use it to. I want to make sure that this point hits you enough where you realize that I mean business, that I mean it, or what have you. Let your yes be yes, let your no be no. Anything else is of the evil one. Sometimes your best bet is to sit back. You don't have to elevate your voice. You don't have to scream. You don't have to use profanity. You don't have to use manipulative talk. Sometimes you just got to be expressive. You got to learn how to say, hey, this is very important to me. This is very serious to me. I know that to you, this may not seem like that big of a deal, but to me, it actually is. And I would really hope that you care enough to kind of look into this or to kind of stop this behavior or what have you. And I would love to hear your thoughts on it as well, because I honestly don't want to override, because you got your point of view, and your point of view and my point of view could be right. It's possible for two people to be right at the same time. All right. It's possible for two people to be wrong at the same time. But you have to be able or willing to communicate and understand that if you're unable to communicate and the person is still playing mind games with you, and you feel like you got to go into, now I got to cuss to get them to get that, that's probably a person that you shouldn't affiliate yourself with. If I got to cuss at you to get you to hear me, I don't need to fool with you. I don't need to fool with you. You're in a neighborhood of thought. So I need to leave you behind in that neighborhood of thought. I'm not going to sit up there and be just like, I've been trying to get you to understand me, and you mother alpha, you B. I've been trying to get you to understand me, but it's like you don't hear. See, that's what you understand. You don't understand kindness. You see that? You don't understand niceness. You don't understand it. This what you understand. If I gotta talk like that, that means that that's a person that lives in a neighborhood of thought that I'm passing through, or that I passed through, and I have to keep visiting them in ignorance in order to get a response. The best thing for me to do is stop visiting them and move on. I got to stop visiting them and move on. I got to say, okay, this person is not getting it. They don't want to get it. So why am I wasting the air in my lungs? Why am I wasting my spit? I got to give an account for every word that come out of my mouth. So I don't want that to be, I don't want this person to have poured a lot of words. And then when I get to heaven, if God says, I'm going to give you an account, let me play back some of the stuff you said. And all you hear is beeps going off in heaven. Deep, deep. And I'm like, deep, 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 deep. And then you're the dead, and then the dead. All right. Number 25, emotional aerobics. Emotional aerobics. This is whenever you're taking people through all these different emotions, happiness, joy, anger, all of those things in order to get what you want. Emotional aerobics. You got to be careful with that kind of stuff, because again, you could be messing around in a person's mind. Emotional aerobics. Whenever you see somebody that's doing that, that's instability manufacturing or manifesting itself, your best bet is, hey, had a conversation. If I'm sitting there and I notice a person, oh my gosh, and they going through all that stuff, I'll be like, are you good? You've shown me like 5 different emotions in one conversation in one sitting. You've shown me like 5 different emotions in one sitting. Are you okay? And I just get so passionate. That ain't passion, that's control. That's not passion. Y'all got to stop nicknaming your demons. All right, stop giving these little cute pet names to demons. You need to call that stuff what it is so you can get free from it. I found that most people that have issues, they nickname their issue. Don't call it we're not going to call that passion. We're going to call that control, domination, witchcraft. We're going to call that covert narcissism. We're going to call it whatever it is. All right. Number 26. This is one, when you're in ministry, people actually try to use this on you. And it may work with some leaders, but it doesn't work on me. And I hate to say this, because I pray that nobody ever follows through with something like this. But I think one of the most annoying things that I've had to deal with are people trying to demand or trying to force me, because I say I don't do one-on-ones, right? Or trying to force me to do a one-on-one, and they'll make a comment or a statement like, I fear if I don't talk to you, this may be my last day on earth, or I don't have much longer, threatening to kill yourself. That's the point of threatening to kill yourself. That's control. A lot of times people will do that, and they'll keep threatening to kill themselves. And if you don't give in to what they want, they'll be just like, well, I'm just tired, I don't see any point for me being on this side of eternity. You don't know what I'm going through, and nobody seems to care. No, I'm going to call the police and send them to you. But one thing I'm not going to do is allow somebody to put that threat, because the minute you allow a person to put that threat over their head, and then you get up on the phone and you're like, okay, I don't want you to kill yourself, they're going to use that to control you for the rest of your life. Every time they don't get their way, you'll be getting a text message. Hey, are you available? Hey, are you here? I feel like this is the last moment. This is my last hour of life. I feel like this. I feel like that. They ain't finna take themselves. They're not gonna take themselves out in many cases. Some of them will, but the majority ain't. The majority of they're just doing that because this is a way that they found to control people. And I've had people, I think most people in ministry, we've had people to pull that stunt, to reach out, go to the contact form on your website and just be telling you that, hey, I need to talk to you. If I don't talk to you, I feel like I'm gonna kill myself or what have you. And I'm just like, I'm not gonna call. That's one thing. I will get the authorities involved, but what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to allow somebody to force me into a conversation, because you got to understand in that you literally don't want help, you want control. And a lot of times, people, I wish people understood this. Sometimes the emotional tantrum is because you could be a Jezebel without an Ahab, and that the Ahabs that you had in your life have left, or they've croaked. Right? There's something happened. They got rigor mortis setting in somewhere, what have you, and you ain't got no Ahab left. And in many cases, you got a strong spirit of Jezebel. It wants to have somebody it feels to be strong. And so now you keep on trying to find leadership or find people that you can control, and nobody won't let you control them. So then you get to the place where you start threatening to kill yourself, not realizing that you actually don't want help, because people have been giving you tools, wisdom, and knowledge. They're giving you every avenue that you need to get free from that, from whatever emotional issues or pain that you're going through, but you don't want that. It ain't that you want help, it's that you want control. I had to call this stuff out. It's not that you want help. That's why sometimes I think as a leader that goes live a lot of times I know I can appear to be cold, right? You can have people that come in the comment section and they be telling, oh, they'll start trying to pull on your emotional strings. But in many cases, they genuinely don't want help. They want attention. They want control. That's it. If you get them on the phone, they're not going to let you talk too much. They're just going to do most of the talking. And even in the midst of that, when you try to give them some advice, you're going to get 5 seconds to give them a pointer. From there, they're going to go right back into their story, taking you around the block, and they're going to dominate your time. They're going to sit up on the phone with you for 711 hours. And out of those 711 hours, you're going to have 34 minutes of talk time. They just want control. You have to understand, a lot of people, it's sad because there are people out there that really do need help, that really do need solutions. But then there are some people out there that use that, right? Threats of killing themselves, threats of harming themselves, threats just so that they can get you to do what they want you to do. And again, it has nothing to do with them wanting help. It has nothing to do with them wanting help. It has everything to do with them wanting to be in control and not having somebody to control, or not having anybody that their demon is satisfied with. Because sometimes demons be wanting people of rank that they can control. Their demon is saying, all you little miniature cigarette butt of an offerings that you offering me, now I want a cigar. And these are the people that go into churches and they want control. They get mad. They up there trying to fight everybody. And at the church, you tell them go sit over here. I'm not sitting over there. I need to have a meeting with your pastor. They go through all of that because they are so desperate to be in control of somebody. All right. Number 27, the use of intelligence to confuse or control someone of lesser intelligence. The use of intelligence to control or confuse someone of lesser intelligence. I learned a long time ago. I talked about this on TikTok. Y'all forgive me. I gotta say it. I learned a long time ago. Don't date a dummy. I'm sorry. I love you, but don't date. And not to say people of lesser intelligence are dumb, but it is to say people. In my experience, when I was in the world, y'all probably heard me say this on TikTok. And when I was in the world, anytime I dated a guy that was of lesser intelligence, for whatever reason, he tried to fight me. I learned, man, if you date somebody that isn't that bright, they're gonna want to fight you if you sit up there and if you use your intelligence. But still, there are some people who will surround themselves with people of lesser intelligence, and they'll use their intelligence to confuse those people and be like, actually, be like, actually, or what have you, to confuse and control those people. You'll never see them get around people who are equal or greater intelligence. Because they know that they'll be challenged, and so they don't want to be challenged. So they'll surround themselves with people of lesser intelligence. Like I said, when I was in the world, I've always liked the nerd. I've always liked the really, really smart guy. But when I was in the world, I had my fair share of times where I dated a guy of lesser intelligence. And the two of the funniest fights that I ever had with a guy, or attempted fights, they didn't turn into fights. They almost turned into fights, were me bringing, just showing any sign of having paid attention in school. I got tossed across the room, thrown into what do you call them, sticker bushes? I actually was thrown on top of the sticker bush. What else? The partial kidnapping. There's another dude. Uh, and it's I went through some stuff with people like that, or what have you. So one thing I always say, you can be unequally yoked intellectually. Now, be equally yoked in the word. I think that's enough. But at the same time, you could be unequally yoked intellectually with a person, and you can end up in a marriage with a person. Whereas um, y'all might not vibe because you have a different way of thinking. You are forward in your thinking. You like to talk about progressiveness, right? You're saying here, I want to go buy this, I want to attain this, I want to achieve this. Whereas their conversations are backwards and they just want to keep talking about who's doing what to who and when and how hard they did it and why they did it and where they did it and when they did it or what have you. And consequently, what you'll find is in that household that there's going to be a division. You're going to have to find somebody that you can talk to that intellectually, that y'all are in sync. And then your partner, let's say your husband, is going to have to find somebody that is in sync with him where he is. And that's where you're going to see a divide, because you'll find that he wants to talk to that person more than he wants to talk to you. And you want to talk to your person more than you want to talk to him. You can't, what do you call that? Um, what do you call that? You can't outsource your intelligence. You can't outsource it. Where meaning you can't get married to somebody of equal of lesser intelligence, and you just have friends that you can talk to. So you can outsource it. But like I said, if you're the type of person that you want to be friends with your spouse, it can prove to be problematic. It can prove to be problematic because you'll be sitting up there talking about some baby. Um, so I'm supposed to be closing the deal on Wednesday. Yeah, that's right. That's good. You heard what happened to you heard what happened to what that boy name is. So his conversations will be about people. His conversations will be about, they said the I saw this on TikTok. Billie Eilish, somebody tried to snatch her into the crowd, and this girl came up with a red bandana, and she darn near about to yoke the man up. That's interesting. But so like I was saying, I'm getting ready to close and I'm about to do this. And I got another deal on the table. I'm working on that. Hmm. Hmm. In that, neither one of you are bad people. It's just y'all in two different neighborhoods of thought. So you care about different things. Every neighborhood of thought has certain things that they care about or what have you. But if you get with somebody, that is a form of Jezebelism. All right. Jezebelism. You get with somebody of lesser intelligence with the intent of controlling them. That is a sign that you might need deliverance from the spirit of Jezebel and control and witchcraft. All right, let's move on. Number 28, physical, emotional, or verbal abuse. He isn't listening because he can't understand, right? Physical, emotional, or verbal abuse. That is witchcraft. It is control. It is unhealthy. It is toxic. It is demonic. All right, that's self explanatory. Let's move on. Number 29, financial abuse is when you use money to control a person. All right, you're the breadwinner in that household, and you decide that, hey, I'm not gonna give you this, or we gonna scale down, we're gonna scale back because I didn't get what I want. Financial abuse. Number 30, triangulation. Triangulation. This is when you bring a third party into a conversation. You bring a third party into a two-party conversation with the intent of winning the argument. That's triangulation. It's good when you get wise counsel. It's good when if it's a serious matter. You don't have to have a third party in every disagreement. You just got to learn how to you got to learn how to disagree in love. Like I said earlier, you got to learn how to find the humor and the love in the fact that you disagree. For me, like I said, for me, I'm not bothered by people who disagree. But the thing that surprised me And when we start talking about different things online, the stuff that divides the body of Christ, and I don't even think it divides, it reveals the wheat from the tares. I've noticed that the wheat, they can have their political choice, their beliefs, and what have you, and they'll talk about it, and that's that, and they just move on, and they have their firm beliefs and what have you, and they're good. And then I noticed that the tare, in many cases, be emotional and be like, if you voted for this particular party, I'm deleting you, and I'm like, oh, please delete me. Because one thing you're not going to do is you're not going to control my hand or my choices. Like my brain, I'm not going to make my brain in sync with your brain just because you feel so passionate about somebody. It ain't passion, it's control. It's not passion, it's control. Triangulation. Triangulation. All right, number 31. Using witchcraft prayers or scriptures to scare, control, or punish someone. Using witchcraft prayers or scriptures to scare, control, or punish another person. You say, what does that look like, Tiffany? Read one more time. Using witchcraft prayers or scriptures to scare, control, or punish another person. What does that look like, Tiffany? I'm gonna pray for you. Let me pray. Father, some of these people or praying actual prayers of destruction or harm upon a person simply because they don't agree. Simply because they don't agree. Religious narcissists, right? Using witchcraft prayers or scriptures to scare, control, or punish another human being. Number 33, rage baiting a person. Rage baiting a person. That is unhealthy, toxic communication using tactics such as sensitive topics or laughing to get an emotional response out of a person. Again, most of the time, this starts as indirect communication, rage baiting a person. And you see, sometimes we'll have in a chat. I haven't seen anybody do it today, but I've had in a chat where people will say things that are confusing, or they'll say things that is be like a little bit of rage bait up in there. And if you keep watching it, you'll notice that they'll put a little bit more up in there. So they'll say something like they agree with you, but then they'll put something that's kind of contrary to what you said in there. But that's just their form of, that's their toxicity. That's how toxic people do. They just put a little bit of leaven is the lump, right? They put a little bit in, they inject a little bit at a time. All right, number 34. That was, that should have been 32. That should have been 32. Thank you. So number 33, because I was about to skip one. This is going to be number 33. That was 32. Circling the runway. Number 33, circling the runway before making a point. Circling the runway before making a point. You say, what does that mean, Sister Tiffany? It means instead of going directly to a point, you spend 5, 7, 8, 15 minutes building your case in a person's ear. You spend 5, 8, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour trying to build a case in a person's ear instead of just going straight to the point. I love movies that sometimes they'll show you the end, like the first few seconds of the movie, or they'll show you a highlight in there where you may see that the woman got her head caught up in a vice grip or something like that. And it just draws you in, then it take you back to the beginning because they give you the point before they give you the beginning. Whenever you're having healthy communication, it is always good to give a solution, right? You want to come to the table with a solution. Don't ever come to a fight or a disagreement or a discussion, a hard conversation without a solution present. You got to have a proposed solution. But 2, make sure you make your point known. 3, always be aware of the other person's time. Don't ever feel like I got to circle the runway. Women are known to do this. I got to circle the runway in order to get my point across. I got to say, so it started off when we were here, and then when you did this, and then you did that. 15 minutes into the conversation, a man is like this. 15 minutes in, and you created a fight. Why? Because you didn't go directly to the point. The point of the matter is, hey, that makes me feel some type of way when you do that. I'm very uncomfortable with that, and I've communicated that with you. When we were at such and such house, you did that, and when you did that, and I've communicated with that you multiple times, and yet you have yet to even listen to me or even try to attempt to do what I'm requesting. So I'm asking in here. Here's my solution. My solution, and I've given this solution before. And it's not a proposition, because for me, this is a deal breaker. Honestly, this, you can tell people that if it's a deal breaker, this is a deal breaker. I don't like you communicating with your ex. It's a deal breaker for me. And so I'm not trying to control you or anything like that. I know for you, you may not see it as a big deal unless I start communicating with one of my exes. And so I'm asking you, and you see what I did was I went straight to the point instead of going back to his childhood, going back to what his mama did with him, and that's the reason why he act the way he act, because of how his mama raised him, and then going back to this and then going back to that. It's too much. It's too much. All right. Number 34, complaining. Complaining. When you constantly keep complaining so that you can get your way, that is toxic. I'm just tired. Let me tell you something. Complaining creates an atmosphere. It's an atmosphere that demons can thrive in. Complaining creates a real negative atmosphere. I noticed, and this is, I love this. I've been single for 11 years and I love it. I noticed that if I have a succession of negative thoughts, my atmosphere seems to change. And I came to realize that I'm not just creating the atmosphere, I am my atmosphere, right? I came to realize that you are your own temperature. I noticed that if I have a succession of negative thoughts, I'll end up having a negative day, a not so great day. And then I may see a succession of negative events that happen. So what that did was it made me start fighting back against negative thoughts, having conversations, getting rid of any type of negativity so that I can get back to my happy place. I can get back to my same place. It's called being mad for a reason. Mad means crazy. Anger is a form of madness. It's not nothing wrong with being angry, but the Bible says, "Be angry, but sin not. Don't let the sun go down upon your wrath." Don't be crazy for more than 24 hours. Complaining. It's not good to complain, honestly. Your best bet is to propose a solution. It's a proposal solution. Yes. Do you need to talk about the things that you deal with? Yes. One of the things I do, and it may make me look like I'm half past crazy, but a quarter the same, but I can't care. I would talk to myself about a situation. I'd be walking around my house and I'd be like, man, that's just crazy. I got to work on this. And this right here, I don't know what the world she was thinking. In that, what I'm doing is I'm sorting. I'm sorting through a series of events. I'm sorting through it because I'm trying to find where the problem is, how I should look at it. I'm praying about it. I'm praying about it. But in the midst of all of that, I never want to get caught complaining because God is too good for me to complain. I've said that when it comes down to relationships, I said a lot of times we'll complain about stuff. We'll complain about what we don't have and totally blur out what we do have. One thing I did when I was in Florida, I did photography as a, hobby and a trade. And when I was doing photography, one thing about it is you're pointing that camera at the person. A lot of times, some of your best ones is when you focus. I always like the zoom lens. You got different types of photographers. I'd always like the zoom, right? I'm not the fan of full bodies. If you want a full body picture, I can do it, but that's probably not my thing. I'm more up close. I used to like to put on but one thing I noticed, when you're zooming, in order for the image that you're focusing on, the central image, to be clear, it blurs out the back image, right? So typically a not so good camera doesn't do well blending out the background images. So consequently, what happens is it's hard to differentiate the central image from the background image. However, whenever you have a really good camera, it will blur out the background. It will completely blur out the background so that you can focus on the main point, or you can focus on the person or what have you. So I like to zoom in. I like to zoom in. Where were we? Complaining. This is what the enemy does. He will make you focus on something that's negative in your life and blur out all your blessings. Imagine me sitting in this house and complaining because let's say God forbid, the air conditioning went off. And I just sit up there and I just complain about that. And I say, it's just crazy, this, that, it's always like that. And I make that a repetitive thing. Every time you look up, I'm complaining about something. What I'm doing is I'm blurring out the fact that I have a house, that there are people out there that are homeless. There are people out there that are exposed to the outside, right? To the weather outside. I have an atmosphere. That what I'm doing in that moment is I'm doing like Eve did. I'm blurring out my blessing to focus on the one thing that I don't got. That's what gets you in trouble with God. Because God is looking at it like, I gave you a million things to praise me for, and all you can seem to see is the few things that you don't have. Spoiled. Here it is, Eve standing in the Garden of Eden, and she had the entirety of the Garden of Eden, all those fruits that she could eat. And the enemy had her focus on the one thing that she couldn't have. Just a one little thing. And I've noticed whenever you're dealing with a complainer, that's what happens. Is that complaining makes you hyper fixate, hyper focus on something that you do not have. I don't know why. It's like, everybody got a man. I'm still single. Everybody, like, they getting married. Even my cousin, a whole thought. A hungry one at that. That child eat. She was on my 600-pound life. How she getting married before me? Don't you make no sense. Everybody seem to be getting a man, and instead of me, instead of focusing on the fact that maybe you're in school, and some people can't afford to be in school. You don't have no kids. Some people are boggled down by 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids, or maybe you got kids and you're all healthy. It's still a blessing. Maybe you're in a house, or you got your sanity of mind. There's a woman somewhere with a man, and she got herself a man laying next to her in the bed, and she's trying to contemplate between homicide and suicide. Should I take him or take me? Should I take him or take me? Because I think if I hit him in the head with a shovel, no, he got a hard head. Because I don't want to use a pew pew. How could I take him out? Oh, I got a cantilever that weighs like 80 pounds. No, still got a high head. There's someone somewhere that's dealing with depression, looking at their man and asking themselves, is 25 years of life worth it? Because he a narcissist. He a demon. Laying up in his bed next to me. Compulsive liar. Cheater. Sleeping real good. Ain't paid a bill since Martin Luther King been here. Just raggedy. Got the nerve to try to cheat and don't last 2 minutes. Can't stand this old. You got somebody somewhere that's looking and saying, I want out. And you out there like, when is it my turn to get in? I've always said, y'all better be glad I ain't God. You better be glad I ain't God. Not that I make a better God than him, because I definitely wouldn't. This is the evidence that I wouldn't make a good God, because I would give you the desires of your wicked heart. I'll let you have that man. And sometimes God do. He'll let you have that man. You keep on fighting for him. He'll be like, okay, you're going to have your lesson. I'll let you get him. I will let you get him. The thing that you playing tug of war with, complaining about, whining about. Oh, you want him? Okay. You can have him. Then when you cry, weeping and gnashing of teeth, Lord help me! Lord! I be like this. I miss Celia. You know how she looked at Mister when he went and got that kerosene? I be rocking back and forth. You wanted a man? You wanted him? You got him. I was withholding them because I was trying to get you to a different state of mind, because you're going to meet somebody according to the state that you're in. I'm trying to get you to a better state of mind so you can meet the right one, but you didn't want to go to the right state of mind. You wanted to stay here and throw a tantrum. So there you go. You got it. Complaining. 35, twisting. That's right. Thank you for the no. Twisting. Use of confusion as a tactic. Twisting. Use of confusion as a tactic. This is usually going to be the Leviathan spirit, is when people twist the conversation to twist the narrative, to point the conversation back away from themselves, to point it at you or point at somebody else, twisting. So if you say to somebody, hey, I don't like it when you raise your voice at me. That really hurts. I was sitting there and I was telling my friend Deborah the other day that, oh, so you were talking to Deborah about us? No, I was telling Deborah that I was feeling some type of way. And, Deborah is a psychologist. And so I was telling her, I mean, she's a friend, but I do see her, so you were talking to Deborah about what's going on with us. That's twisting. That's twisting. In the midst of that, we're not able to finish a conversation because you keep on trying to control the conversation, or you're twisting my words. If I say, I like that outfit that you're wearing, blue looks really good on you. And then you turn and say, so what you're saying, I don't look good in no other color? What you trying to say? I don't look good in no other color? No, I'm actually just complimenting. It's an actual compliment. I think you look great in other colors, but I just noticed that this makes your skin. So, I mean, I'm just saying. So, because I was wearing a black outfit yesterday, so you trying to say I don't look good? Twisting. All right. That is Leviathan. 36. Use of false prophecies or assumed prophecies. Use of false prophecies or assumed prophecies. Toxic communication. Example of that, God said you my wife. You can assume that God is saying anything, but you don't confirm it, or you can use false prophecies in an attempt to get whatever it is that you want, but that is unhealthy communication. That is unhealthy communication. God told me that you was going to betray me. God didn't tell you that. Sometimes God can, but in many cases it's just you trying to scare the person into thinking that you are righteous in God and that they're the devil. All right. Number 37, love bombing. Love bombing. Love bombing is toxic, is demonic, but it works. And many of you love it. All right. You love to be love bombed, especially if you are super sensitive, if you are highly prophetic or you're a prophet. Why Jezebel, aka the narcissist, goes after God's prophets, or God's highly prophetic people. Well, goes after prophets and prophetic people in totality. Now, if you have the Holy Spirit, you're prophetic, but there are degrees of that, depending on the calling on your life. But love bombing, it works. It's called love bombing, but it works. It is an attack. It is effective whenever your heart is not guarded. That's why God says, guard your heart, for out of it pours the issues of life. Y'all don't be wanting to hear me when I say this. Love bombing only works when you're in idolatry, when your heart is not guarded, when you have no self-control. You're like a city that is broken down without walls, meaning the enemy has easy access to your heart. When you say silly things like, I wear my heart on my sleeve, or I love hard. No, just call it what it is. I said, stop nicknaming your demons. Call it what it is. Just say I'm an idol worshiper. I have a tendency to worship people because I don't love God with all of my heart. And I have not learned to love myself. Therefore, the love that God has shared with me that I was supposed to share with him, I'm giving it to a person, hoping that they'll multiply it and give it to me in return. Instead, what they're doing is they keep taking it from me. And so now I'm sitting up over here and I feel like a good person because I'm doing to them what I should have been doing for God, and they're not reciprocating. You gotta stop nicknaming your demons. Stop nicknaming your issue. I just I love hard. I love hard. You don't love hard. You just don't love correctly. All right. Love bombing. Again, it only works when your heart is not guarded. If you love bomb somebody with a guarded heart, I can tell you, I can tell you straight up, it's funny. I've had dudes try to love bomb me in my years of singleness, and it becomes hilarious because they all sound the same, right? Because instead of using effective communication, they're using tactics, and it becomes very hard for them to get through. Um, it becomes very hard for them to to do what they want to do, to say stuff, or I'm trying to think of the right word, to manipulate you. It becomes very hard for them to manipulate you whenever your heart is guarded, because in the midst of all of that, you have what's called standards. Standards are walls. All right. So I want you to think about when it comes down to war.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
It's a beauty. That's the beauty of having an ALEXA device. I don't have to draw this out, but I feel the need to draw this out for whatever reason. So if you got a castle, if you had a castle, because if you had a castle needs to have walls around it. And this is going to probably be one of the ugliest castles you've ever seen. And probably one of the ugliest castles, but forgive me. All right, forgive me. The castle should have walls around it to protect it. All right, and there should be watchmen on the wall the whole nine. Forgive me. This ain't gonna be attractive at all. All right. This ain't gonna be attractive at all. Where were we? Oh, you know what? I was about to read some old notes. I was over here looking at where my notes at. What was I at? Where my notes at? All right. Oh, we were talking about love bombing. So we're dealing with this as if it's a castle. Not only is it a castle, it's your heart. Not only is it a castle, it's your heart. Like I said, it's not going to be attractive. All right. Let's say this is a castle. This is your heart. There should be a wall. There should be a wall around it. Those walls should be the word of God, but they should set the stage for your standards. Now, I want you to understand, some people have a low wall. Some people have a tall wall. Those who have a low wall, the devil gets access to them easily. Some people have a high wall. If you have a low wall, love bombing, think of it as a bomb. They can easily fling it over that wall and get access to your heart. Or they can actually use that bomb to break down your walls if it's not thick enough. If you don't have firm boundaries, they can actually use that. However, if you have firm boundaries, please hear me when I say this. Firm boundaries are developed with habit of enforcing them. They're not developed by just because you have a loud voice, or you be like, you know what, from here on out. No, firm boundaries are established through practice. Somebody need to write that in the chat. Firm boundaries are established through practice. Me practicing telling family members, nope. I said no. Okay. Let me pull away. Firm boundaries are established with practice. This is how you harden that wall, right? You don't harden your heart. You harden that wall. They're established with practice. These standards should be high so that nobody can love bomb me. So if somebody's trying to love bomb me, for example, if somebody's trying to love bomb me and that person is saying, man, I don't know what it is about you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. If I got standards, then that's not enough. Your words do jack diddly squat for me. They don't do nothing for me. I need action. And I ain't talking about in the bedroom. I need to see the effort, the time. I need to see the practice, the diligence, the consistency. I need to see God in all that you do. Aurora, thank you, beautiful. God bless you. I need to see practice in all that you do. So that's a firm boundary. With that firm boundary, the person that's love bombing me is going to ghost me. Please hear what I say. Because y'all don't be wanting to be ghosted. And I do. And I keep trying to tell you, I don't know why you don't want to be ghosted. I be wanting to be ghosted. It's the wrong person. I think because I've got a history of being with the wrong person. So I want to be ghosted if it's the wrong person. If you got your standards high, meaning you're not coming to my house. We ain't sleeping together outside of marriage. Don't even attempt to do that. I need you to be in a relationship with the Most High God. I need to see a consistency in your relationship with God. I need to see the fruit of the Spirit in your life. I better not see that many works of the flesh. I understand that you're overcoming, but still, I better not see a whole lot of, like, a whole garden that you're tending to of the works of the flesh. I need to see this consistent. I need to see your character align with the character of God. I need to see those. These are standards. These are requirements. These are not options. These are not things that I'm willing to take down and have a meeting with. These are what do you call those? What do you call those? Non-negotiables. These are non-negotiables. A person that's love bombing me is going to say, you got to fence up. You got to fence up. And I don't know what happened to you. What? No, I don't have a fence up. It's called standards. Right? Now, I can go into a whole other talk, and I'm trying not to go there. There's a difference between standards and boundaries. I always say standards are what it takes to get on the ride. Boundaries are what's required to stay on the ride. Standards are when I put up and say this is what it requires. This is the height requirement in order to get access. But boundaries are, this is how you maintain access. So if I'm dating you, that hand of yours, neither one of those nubs should touch my body, right? Because we're not married. We don't have matching last names. So you're not humping me while I wear my daddy last name, right? We're not going to have mismatched last names in the bedroom. So that's called a boundary. All right. But love bombing only works when your heart is not guarded, or when you have low standards, when your wall is down, when you don't have a healthy or strong enough wall, when you're not used to enforcing boundaries, because in your mind, I don't want to lose him. You listening to Miss Maybell over there telling you, girl, you better hold on to that man. No, you better not. You better submit yourself to God, resist the devil, and let the devil flee from you. That's what the Bible says, James 4:7. Submit yourself, therefore, to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. All right, number 38, psychological manipulation. And all of these are psychological manipulations, but psychological manipulation is when you start playing with a person's mind. You start playing tricks on their mind. You start doing little things in an attempt to control the person, to control their mind, or what have you. I remember there was this one case, and this is more of an on the extreme side. There was this one case where I think I saw it on TikTok. This lady was talking about her husband was making her feel like she lost her mind, where he would set her alarm, like he would change her alarm to late. She would set her alarm so she can go to work. So let's say, for example, she had to be at work at 8 a.m. and she set her alarm, let's say 6:30 a.m. What her husband would do was he would change the time on the clock. And so he would make it look like, so the alarm would go off. It could be 4 in the morning. And she's thinking, oh my gosh, it didn't go off. It's 8 a.m. It didn't go off. So she would go through all of that stuff, get dressed. She'd be freaking out. And then she'd go to work and the job is closed, or they're looking at her like, what in the world are you doing here? So she's confused. She go back home and the clock is reset to the right time. Now, this is when you start dealing with a psychopath or what have you. But still, there are light levels of psychological manipulation that people employ. And then there are heavy levels of it. Lying is psychological manipulation, right? Especially whenever you do it with malice intent, or malicious intent. But that is a form of psychological manipulation. When you intentionally try to distort another person's reality, make them feel like they're crazy, make them feel like they're wrong in order to gain control of the relationship. 39, the use of unpleasant or unwelcoming body language. It really is diabolical. The use of unpleasant or unwelcoming body language. It's like this is body language. Using facial, this is body language. Or trying to act like when somebody's hurting, trying to act like you don't care. That's body language. You're communicating with the person. In the midst of all that, they're sitting up there, you really hurt me. I love you. I don't want to lose you. And you like, that's still a form of communication. And it is toxic. Because it's not to say that you need to you don't have to match people's emotions, but you do share care and concern, instinctive care and concern. So instinctively, you may feel the need to do this. Instinctively, you may feel the need to go. Right, instinctively. But in this, you make a decision in your head that, nah, I'm not going to show any emotions because I'm tired of this or what have you. So Or you start doing this right here where the person's talking to you. And they're like, I care about you. I care. The use of unpleasant or unwelcoming body language. Number 40, intentionally changing the atmosphere. Intentionally changing the atmosphere. One of the most demonic things that you could do to a person is change the atmosphere in the house by cold shouldering the person or walking around just acting weird toward the person. And in that, you understand that people thrive in a certain atmosphere. I've learned that I thrive in peace. I thrive in peace, right? Most people thrive in peace. But when a person is upset with you, when a person is a narcissist or they're narcissistic, when a person is toxic, in many cases they will intentionally change the atmosphere in your house or in the house that they share with you or in the company or in your church or what have you. They would intentionally change the atmosphere to make it unwelcoming and unpleasant to you so that you can deal with torment. And what it does is atmospheres, it set the place for demons, right? Or angels. So you can set an atmosphere of worship for God, but you can also set a demonic atmosphere. It sets an atmosphere where demons of torment can now come and torment that person. Spirits of torment can now come and torment that person and be like, now the person is like, man, I just want my house to go back to normal. I just want to go back to work without feeling this way. This girl makes me like, I'd be so drained when I go to work. Or, I just want things at church to go back to normal. That is a form of communication. It is dark. It is demonic. It is, again, setting an atmosphere like, okay, I'm going to intentionally make things unpleasant for this person by when she see me. Let's say we working together. When you see me, whereas I used to be like, hey, how you doing? And you see me, I'm like, hey. And then I go to talking to somebody else. Girl, that outfit looks good on you. Where'd you buy that from? Huh? Oh, yeah. Girl, where'd you buy that from? I like that. You should wear. That's your cover. In that, what you're doing is attempting to torment the person by changing the atmosphere, changing what's norm or what's been normalized in the atmosphere, changing and making it a negative place so that person can give in to your tactics. That is witchcraft. That is illegal. All right. Remember, I said we're going up to 50, so we're almost done. I know I initially said 40, but I was writing more as I was getting ready. All right. The Lord's laying more on my heart. Number 41, listening to respond and not hear. Listening to respond and not hear is whenever you come to a conversation and you're not willing to hear the person out or consider what they're saying, but you've already made it up in your mind that you're right, they're wrong. And so consequently, you are sitting up there, typically in a conversation like that, you can see it in the body language of a person because they'll be like, mouth be already halfway open. They'll be like, I don't mean to cut you off. It's like double dutch. It's like double dutch. Listening to respond and not hear. Again, you will create an individualism in the house because then it becomes every man for himself in that type of situation. All right. So listening to respond and not hear. Number 2, avoiding conflict by avoiding conversation. Avoiding conflict by avoiding conversation. It's like, okay, now I'm just not going to have any, I'm not going to have the battle or the conversation that we need to have because I don't want it to be a fight up in this house. You got to stop thinking about fighting. I tell people all the time, stop thinking about when people tell me that they have fear of confrontation. I said, stop calling it confrontation and it'll make it a lot easier for you. Call it having a meeting. Terry, thank you. God bless you. I appreciate you. Call it having a meeting. I'm going to have a meeting. It not only changes how you feel about it, but it changes how you approach the person. Because when you start talking confrontation, you start thinking that you got to approach the person in a negative way and in a condescending way or in an aggressive, assertive, or domineering way. You don't. You just got to approach the conversation in a proper way, right? Pray on it. Sit back and sort through the issue. I always employ what I call the sorting technique. And this is something that God gave me some years ago, sorting technique, and it always makes me think of when I was a kid. When I talk about the sorting technique, is my mother when I was a kid, what she used to do, she used to wash and dry our clothes. I remember when I was 8 years old, specifically, it's like a clean, clear memory of my mom telling me, "Hey, Tiffany, call her Tiffany, Tiffany. And she called my brother's name. She called she wouldn't call my sister's name because she would put my sister's clothes up because my sister was young. But I remember my mom calling us into the room, and I would go up in there and she would give me this stack of clothes. All right. She would give me this stack of clothes that belonged to me. Then she would hand my brother the stack of clothes that belonged to him. She would give my dad the stack of clothes that belonged to him. Sometimes she'll put his up. And then my sister, because she was so young, she put my sister's up and she put hers up. Sorting is basically before you go confronting a person, especially for something that is major, before you go confront the person, you sit down and find you in the equation, right? Rather than you don't want to come throw everything at the person because then they're going to point out you and how you're not taking accountability. So you want to go through the situation, go through the conversation in your mind, and you want to sit there and say, okay, this belongs to me. When she said that, she was actually reacting to what I said. That belongs to her because that was unnecessary. So this was unprovoked. You want to sort through it. When you sort through it, what ends up happening is when you sort through it, be careful in the comments. Don't get aggressive and rude over here. All right. But when you sort through it, what ends up happening is it becomes a lot easier to go to the conversation and not think of it as a confrontation. It becomes easier to approach the conversation the proper way because now I approach the conversation saying, first and foremost, I want to apologize for what I've done. Remember, there are some key elements to having a healthy conversation. All right, let me go ahead. Now you just block this type of people. They didn't come in to learn. They came in to get attention. He never got attention from his mom. But whenever you start talking about what was we talking about? What were we talking about? What was I saying, guys? I'm sorry. I allowed that man to throw me off. What was I talking about? But it's unhealthy communication. We'll get back on it. Sorting. Thank you. Thank you. Sorting. Thank you. Sorting. So once you start sorting, what ends up happening with sorting is I've done sorting before. And I've learned that when I sort, 80-90% of the conversations I thought I needed to have, I didn't need to have because I was able to find me in the equation. Right? I was able to find me in the equation. And I was able to say, yeah, that I kind of initiated that. I didn't realize I was initiating. I said this or what have you. And I wasn't thinking before I spoke. I put my foot in my mouth or what have you. And I realized it's the conversation I needed. Or if a conversation is needed, I want to apologize. Hey, I did this. You said this. I didn't like what you said. All right. But I do realize that what I said, kind of instigated and set the way for you. What you said. So I want to apologize for this or what have you. But if I do this, and again, you bring a solution to the table. You never come to the table with a complaint without a solution. This is why, and the reason for that is because a lot of people have come through unhealthy communication channels and stuff like that, unhealthy channels of communication, and they don't know how to come up with a solution. So when you're telling them a problem, you got honestly a lot of people that really don't know what to say to you. So they're going to always default back to what they know, which is cussing, raising their voice, looking at their phone, doing certain things. So you always want to come to the table with a solution. All right, you got to always be solution minded. You always got to be solution minded, meaning you come to hey, so if I ever, because I know I was saying this and I honestly feel like I was being insensitive because I remember you telling me that, you and that dude just broke up and he had been running down the street naked because he had some drugs in his system. And I made a comment and I really didn't think it out. Honestly, it wasn't malicious. I didn't think it out. I sat back and I was saying, somebody should go to a nude event, pepper spray everybody. And I wasn't thinking about you. I really wasn't thinking about him. And I mean, subconsciously, it could have had something to do with that conversation, but honestly, it wasn't on the forefront of my mind. And I want to apologize because I know you started saying that some Christians need to be pepper sprayed, before they talk, right? Because they'll think about what they're about to say. And I may say in the situation like that, hey, I realized I got offended and I understand because I felt like you were directing that at me, but I realized you were responding to what I said. All right. I realized you were responding to what I said. And because I couldn't understand why you said that. But when I really thought it through, when I actually sat there and thought it through, I think you were responding to this because you told me that, this happened with your man and I wasn't being malicious. I take full accountability for it. But if I ever do something like that, please bring it to my attention because I'm not trying to be malicious. And it's to say, and I can't tell you how to respond because I had a not good. But if you feel attacked, just bring it to my attention. Direct. You can be direct with me and say, "Hey, I don't like that," or you can sit there and say, "So you want to make fun of the fact that this is what happened? I shared this with you because in that moment I'm going, oh, I'm sorry. I really wasn't trying to do that. I really wasn't trying to do that, honestly." And in that moment, I'm able to kind of correct my wrong or what have you. All right. Number three, passive aggression. Passive aggression, unhealthy communication. Passive aggression is whenever you don't say what you want to say, but you say it, and it's almost like ministry, but you say it in a way where you feel like the person can understand without you directly saying it to them. Is for example, saying some people need to take a cold shower after the person has expressed to you that they deal with lust, instead of just being direct and saying, "Hey, here's a solution. This is what I think. If you deal with lust," passive aggression. All right. Number four, number 44. Number 44. Bottling thoughts and emotions until you explode. Bottling thoughts and emotions until you explode. So you don't like confrontation. You don't want to say anything. So you keep everything in. And typically your relationships end prematurely as a result because at the end you have this one big explosion of all these different things that a person did to you, said to you, how they made you feel, and they never knew the whole time. I've had people to do that to me, and it is one of the most annoying things to me. They sit up and tell me, "And you remember you did this back in this month and this year." And I'm like, "I didn't. I what? What?" Don't ever bottle things up. It's not healthy. Don't ever bottle things up. It's not healthy. Take it home, sort through it, and have the conversation. Stop trying to. Okay, I think the thing that what you need to hear is stop trying to hold people in your life that God is trying to deliver you from it. Sometimes conversations do end relationships. And that's the reality because you realize that we can't walk together no more because we're not in agreement. And it's not to say disagreement ends relationship, but it is to say if you're on two different paths, right? And you're heading toward two different deities. You're heading toward the Most High God, and this person is gone left or what have you. You got to stop trying to hold on to people to the point where you're sitting up there and you're bottling stuff up. You're bottling stuff up. No, open your mouth, sit down. And you said dealing with a friend now. Bring her, sit her down, face to face. I don't do phone, or if I do phone, it's gonna be FaceTime. Sit her down face to face, pen and paper in hand, hand her paper. Hey, let's talk. I won't raise my voice, and I don't want you to raise your voice. Your thoughts, I will always consider that I'm not going to demean or all of that kind of stuff. Then you practice that. That's how you keep your relationships healthy. Is when you're able to not bottle that stuff up and get it out. Then most of the stuff. This is one of the reasons I've always loved healthy communication. I found, and I think, like I said, it came from me being in a toxic household. I found growing up in that household that half of the stuff that was unsaid was what would cause a fight. It will always be a misunderstanding. It will always be a misunderstanding. It could be something as simple as me walking into the kitchen and another family member that's having a bad day thinking that I walked past them intentionally to aggravate them. Literally, I grew up in a household like that. You just walk, you did that to bother me. No, I did this because I'm hungry. I did this because I'm hungry. And this is the only path to the kitchen. All right. Bottling thoughts and emotions until you explode. Number 45, talking at people instead of to them. Talking at people instead of to them. Be sure to like and share. If you haven't liked this already, do be sure. Let's have a like, share, and a subscription. Be sure to subscribe. It's going to bless your life. You're going to get free on this channel. You're going to get revelation on this channel. You're going to get wisdom on this channel. All right. Talking at people instead of to them. I don't understand why people do this, and I don't understand why people do that. And the person sitting there looking at you, and they like, yeah, I don't understand it either. No, tell them, hey, you do this, you do that, and I don't like it. You do this, you do that, I don't like it. I was talking to a sister in Christ of mine, a friend of mine yesterday, and we were talking about, she's a therapist, and we were talking about we got into, and that's what actually motivated this talk, was we got into unhealthy communication and stuff like that. And I was talking about, for some of my pet peeves. And she was talking about, just different toxic things that people do. And I was like, yeah, the average human person doesn't really know how to healthily communicate, which is why I said I'm going to do a health communication course. I said I found that even doing mentorship, the thing that aggravates a lot of people in leadership, you think leaders are out here being mean, is because people have unhealthy communication styles and they're just trying to manipulate, dominate, maneuver their way into whatever they want. And so as a leader, because you're dealing with so many people, you're having to swat so many people out. Stop it. You literally feel like you're swatting, because you got people that feel like I got to slither in, I got to climb in, I got to scream my way in, I got to kick in, I got to cry my way in. You got people doing all these different things because of what it is that they're trying to access and the way that they've been taught to access what they want, but talking at people instead of to them. Number 6, disregarding someone's thoughts or feelings. We're almost there, guys. Disregarding someone's thoughts or feelings. That's toxic. Disregarding someone's thoughts or feelings is making a person feel like their thoughts or their feelings are not valid, or that they are pointless. Now, there are some cases where your thoughts and your feelings are not valid. I'm gonna be honest with you, but there are other cases where they should be considered. They should be taken into consideration. The reason I say there are some times when they're not valid is when you're emotionally driven, right? And sometimes you're just having a bunch of thoughts that are centered around your feelings. Nevertheless, you should always take the time out to consider what a person is saying, consider what a person is thinking, and consider it. But in many cases, and I have to make sure I say that because I know highly emotional people be like, yeah, that's right. They didn't want to disregard my thoughts and disregard my feelings. If your thoughts are always negative and your feelings are always high, then you're gonna have people that have a practice of disregarding them because they know you're just emotional and you use emotions as a mechanism of control. All right, I had to throw that in there. Number 47, comparison talk. That's toxic. Comparison talk. You tell somebody that your uncle, your uncle Troy died yesterday. He fell into a swamp and got ate by an old alligator. They didn't even know the alligator could eat nobody anymore because the alligator didn't have that many teeth left in his head. But somehow the alligator managed to eat Uncle Troy or what have you. But he was old too, so they think that the alligator and Uncle Troy had some type of beef or what have you. And now you sitting up over there and you like, well, yeah, I had 3 people in my family that kicked the bucket this month. Comparison talk, whether it be good or negative, where you feel the need to one up a person every time they talk. You feel the need to one up a person every time they talk. If they say they got somebody, if they say they got the flu, you said you got COVID. If they say that their back hurt, you said your back broken. If they say that they got dumped, they say that they got not only dumped, but everybody ghosted them. Right? Everything is a competition. That is unhealthy. Comparison talk. Now, I do want to stop and say this because I do have a pet peeve. And one of the things I don't like is comparison talk. Some people are just blessed. Can I say this right quick? And I'm gonna move on. Some people are just blessed. God favors them, He blesses them. I tell people this all the time because I've had counseling sessions when I used to do one-on-ones. I don't do them anymore. I have to always re-emphasize that. But some people are just blessed. I've done one-on-ones with people, and they say, "Yeah, every time I sit up there, my friend, she want to call. When she called me, she always talking about she bought a new house, she bought a new car, she just got this, and what have you." And she just be boasting and bragging, and I'm like, no. Realistically speaking, I tell them, I said, if I'm blessed, as it's human nature to want to have somebody to talk to about it, to be excited, to share the news with. And I said, that's why. And I've said this to people. That's why it is not healthy for non-blessed people to be friends with blessed people, or blessed people to not be friends with non-blessed people, because non-blessed people see it as you boasting. Somebody else that's just equally blessed will celebrate you. You got to learn how to celebrate people. So I want to be careful with that. While comparison talk is, somebody trying to one up you is bad, is not good. Sometimes it's not one upping. Sometimes you got to learn how to celebrate. Sometimes that's your test. You got to learn how to celebrate people when God blesses them. You got to learn how to celebrate people when God blesses them, and stop thinking that they boast and they bragging just because you ain't got it. Nah, no, celebrate. Number 48. Right. Poor Uncle Troy. Number 48, deflection, is when you turn the conversation back around to the other person. I think we talked about something along those lines, so we won't stay there long. But number 48, deflection. Right. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Thank you for the scripture. Amen. Deflection is when you deflect away from the conversation, you deflect to another topic, you deflect to something else, but you're always trying to take the conversation and twist it in a different direction. Deflection. 49. 49 is one of my pet peeves. Punishing people for not reading your mind. I punishing people for not reading your mind. I remember, and I've talked about this before, young lady used to kind of go church, right? She would come and she would just stop coming to church. And she'd go away for months at a time. And I've seen a lot of people do this, go away for months at a time. And then I saw her at church one day. I was like, oh, look who back. I said, you done got saved again or what have you. And she was like, you didn't call to check on me. No, nobody called to check on me. And I said, that's witchcraft. And she was shocked, because I was like, I came straight out. I was like, that's witchcraft. And she was like, I said, intentionally removing yourself from a space just to see if somebody is going to check on you or to read your mind, that's witchcraft. I had an old friend of mine. I remember this young lady. She told me one time. She said she had told me she was sick, and I don't remember if she was sick or her daughters were sick or what. Somebody in her household was sick. I think it was supposed to be her sick or what. No, it was her. She said she was sick, and she sat back and she was like, "I told you I was sick, and you didn't even call to check on me." And I said, "I saw you online." I said, "Were you?" I said, "The whole time when you were sick, were you not getting online?" She was like, "Yeah." I said, "So your fingers were working?" I said, "The same fingers that it would took to text me to give me an update or to call me, they were working." Because we didn't talk that often on the phone. So it was just the same old pattern, right? So I just went right back into the pattern. A common cold, all of that kind of stuff is not that big of a deal. And I told her, I said, witchcraft. She said, how is that witchcraft? I said, your fingers were working. You were able, I said, did you not talk on the phone for that whole week or so? She's like, yeah, I've been on the phone. I said, did you make any phone calls? She said, I see where you're going. I said, you made phone calls. You do it. I said, stop with this mentality that every time I'm in a low place, now everybody's like obligated. This is my opportunity to get some form, some semblance of control over people. Everybody is now obligated to check on me. Everybody's obligated to do this. Stop doing it. I said, if you sick, reach out. I'm talking to somebody. I'm talking to y'all. I said, you sick, you reach out. If you got an issue going on, reach out. Stop sitting up there looking at your phone. They don't care nothing about me. They didn't even reach out to me. Everybody out here is living a life. People are busy out here. People are busy. People got things going. I can genuinely say most of my friends, we go months without talking. Genuinely. Because they busy. I don't have too many non-busy people in my life. Most people are just busy. I'm busy. They busy. It is what it is. It's not personal. It's kingdom. It's beautiful. That means there's a pattern, right? There's a pattern there. When it comes down to it, you cannot expect people to break a pattern because it's a habit at that point. Now, if you got a friend that call you every day, now I got a problem because you stopped calling me when I was sick. Then I got a problem. Then I'm like, why did you stop calling me? I mean, you could have been an uplifting voice. The Bible talks about healing, being, and laughter. You could have called, at least made me laugh, call and fart on the line, do something, what have you. But it is toxic, and it comes from rejection. to expect people to read your mind and to already have an established response in your mind that you believe that they ought to have in order to prove their love for you. You heard what I said? You already have it established in your mind. This is the correct response. So if you don't do that, you're not my friend, or you don't love me. If you don't do that, no, not everybody comes from where you come from. We are all different. We come from different regions, and I'm talking about physically, geographically, but we come from also different regions of thought. We got all different experiences. We don't all experience the same things, right? We didn't all experience, so we all have different ways that we respond. But one thing you don't do, and this is one of the things that is really is expect people to read your what's going on in your head. So I told you, I remember, and when I was in the world, and even when I got saved, one of the conversations I had with a lot of my friends, all right, they would be like, "Girl, I don't like her because she thinks she this, thinks she that." And I said, "How you know she thinking? You in her head? Can you see her thoughts?" They say, "There you go again." I'm like, "No, I'm just saying, can you see her thoughts?" Because you don't know what a person is thinking until you have a conversation. And like I told, I said that came from me growing up in a household where people are trying to read your mind, and 99.9999999% of the time they'd be wrong. Right? Because when they're having a bet to the pure, all things appear. So to the person who are impure, everything is impure. So when their heart is impure, they automatically assume that your heart is impure. When somebody's heart's not right, they automatically assume that you up to no good either. You just lollygagging along. You just having la 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 la. And next thing you know, you under attack because somebody's having a bad day. Don't punish people for not reading your mind. I'm gonna stop here and I'm gonna say this, and I got one more. I got this one more. I want to stop there and say this because I saw a skit, all this kind of stuff. And I don't know if I mentioned it on here. I think I mentioned it on TikTok. Ladies, stop getting somebody gonna get mad at me. I can't care. I love you though. Allow people to have human moments where they forget stuff. Your birthday, anniversary. If my anniversary is coming up and I'm married and I know that he ain't mentioned nothing about it, that's not a test of his love for me because he may be living life and forgot all about it. Sometimes the best thing to do is to say 2 weeks in advance, remember, our anniversary is coming. You better not forget that anniversary date because I want us to do something special. I I'm a person that will forget a birthday in a minute. I don't remember half of that stuff. Heck, I don't even remember my own birthday. It is unfair to people to have to put all these dates in their mind and remember all these different special days. I love that, redeemed. That's right. You can't compete with the voices in their head. One thing about it, when you got a person, I said, don't give people access to your heart who have trouble guarding their own. If they can't fight them voices, don't even put your voice in the mix because it becomes a whole problem. Punishing people for not reading your mind. I have to say, I gotta say this, ladies, my sisters, just communicate. To the brothers too, because some of y'all are questionable. Communicate. Hey, my birthday's coming. Hey, this anniversary is coming. Hey, remember this. Hey, remember that. Stop using that to start a major fight over a minor issue because you're looking at it as a definition or how they define your value or the value of that relationship. It may not be true. Sometimes you got a person that's stressed out, that's doing a whole lot, going through a lot of stuff, and they're not thinking about that. I just tell people, just talk. Just open your mouth and talk. Hey, November, this date, remember that's our anniversary. Yeah. No, give me your phone. Give me your phone. Take his phone, put it in notification, turn notifications on. Instead of starting a fight from it. Instead of waiting, because one thing I don't like, I hate when a person waits till their birthday, right? Wait till their birthday, go their whole birthday, and then turn around and contact me a day or two later and be like, So somebody didn't call me for my birthday. And I'm like, when was your birthday? Yesterday. I'm like, oh, hopefully you had a great birthday. It would have been better. I was in my house crying and all that stuff because nobody contact me. Well, in cases like that, contact people. Then he don't want to plan anything. So then that's something that you'll talk to him about to see how he values it. He may not see that big of a deal in it. And sometimes he has to get wise counsel involved to help him to understand, hey, that's valuable to me. It may be just another day to you. So for me, for example, I'm a highly sentimental person. However, there are some things that I don't find too sentimental. Like I don't celebrate my birthday really heavy. All right. I'm not one of those people like you missed my birthday. I don't turn into a princess. But my students do. They're always trying to do something for my birthday to kind of remind me or what have you. And I appreciate that. That's for me, that's sentimental. That's beautiful. All right. But it becomes annoying when a person will wait and be like, I was at home breaking down all yesterday. I was like, I'm going to change my whole circle. I'm about to delete everybody on Facebook. I'm about to restart my life. I say, call people. People are living out here. People are going through. It's a lot going on with people. You don't know what a person is going through. In a case like that, if you're at home and you're expecting something, just text and say, it's okay to text somebody and say, hey, today's my birthday. Hey, just throwing it out there. Today's my birthday. Hopefully you got something planned. If they anything like me, they're gonna do this right here. Ooh, I'm just gonna hit your cash app. That's it. Cause I'm probably not one to come out the house. I done forgot. I gotta plan stuff out in my head before I come out my house. Um, but sometimes you just gotta communicate it. All right, number 50, last one. And this is toxic communication. Showing interest after the problem has been solved. Showing up or showing interest after the problem has been solved. It's like when you're, let's say, married and you're telling the person, hey, we got to get this done. We got to get this done, taken care of in a matter of time. Or you're trying to, fix a problem and your spouse is not showing interest. But then after everything goes over, then they kind of show up and be like, oh, whatever happened with that? Oh, I would help you with that. Sorry, I didn't help you with that. That's weaponizing confidence. A lot of times you'll have people that will sit back and they'll wait for you to get over your emotion, wait for you to get over the pain, wait for you to get the therapy, wait for you, and then they want to go back and address the matter. And then they just kind of show interest in. They show interest in. And they just sit back and be like, you know what? Um, so I was thinking about this, and you're like, yeah, I'm over that by now. I'm over that by now. I'm gonna throw a bonus one in here because somebody put in there guilt tripping. That is another form of toxic communication. That's your bonus. I'm gonna let that go. But guilt tripping, putting a guilt trip on a person, and just making them feel bad or what have you. One thing I've learned is that one thing I do is I allow humans to be humans and to make mistakes. So if somebody makes a mistake with me, and they're like, "Hey, I made a mistake" or what have you, I ain't rubbing nobody's nose in it. I'm not gonna be like, so you remember this? Do you remember? Love keeps no record of wrongs. All right. Love keeps no record of wrong. So I'm not gonna rub their nose in it. I'm not gonna make them feel bad about it. We're gonna be progressive and move forward. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to create toxic habits with people. You don't want to get their defenses up. If you want to have a strong soul tie with people, you want trust. So, a strong soul tie means I feel safe with you. I don't feel like I have to defend myself against you because I know your heart is pure. I know your heart is good. I know your intentions are good. I know you will not do anything to hurt me. And I know if you did anything that you knew hurt me or made me feel some type of way, you would come back and you would respond. You would apologize to that. And so this is the type of relationship where God flows best in because there's unity in that relationship. Because in that you got two or more people who are intentional, two or more people who have made a decision to trying to see what that is. But you got two or more people who've made the decision to be intentional. You got two or more people who made the decision to be prayerful. Pray for your friends. Pray for the people that you're dating. Pray for your spouse. Pray for everybody in your life. And I say this to my students, and I'll say this to you. Make sure that everywhere you go, any relationship you find yourself in, put it in your mind to be a blessing. Never get in a relationship thinking what you're gonna get from it. Go into it thinking what you can bring to the table. How can I be of service to you? When you have that mentality, your relationships will be blessed because you're blessing them. And in order for you to be blessed, in order for you to be a blessing, you got to be blessed. So you got to make that intention. But in this, one of the things I would highly recommend is for you to get therapy. If you looked at this list and you say, Sister Tiffany, I took notes and it was a lot of them there. I got therapy. Therapy. Get the word of God. Foundation. That's your foundation. But you also want to get therapy. You want to learn different coping mechanisms, different coping skills. You also want to learn to, you have to learn to, I'm trying to find a way to say this, annihilate unrealistic expectations, meaning you already made it up in your mind, this is the conclusion that I'm supposed to get, or this is what I'm supposed to get out of this scenario. Sometimes you'll come out of a scenario with nothing but the relationship empty handed, not getting what you want, but still having a strong and firm relationship. And it's a seesaw, because there'll be cases with times when that person doesn't get what they want, and there are times where both of y'all have to divide the baby in half. You got to divide things in half. But it is to say, you got to be intentional. You can't be controlling. You cannot sit up and say you want a healthy kingdom relationship, you want healthy kingdom friendships, and you have issues with control. You can't say that you want to have people in your life that hear you, because I hear people saying this all the time. I would love to have me a sisterhood. I'd love to have me a brotherhood of people that love me. I would love to have a healthy sisterhood or what have you. And then you come in and you have unhealthy communication styles. Whereas people tell you no, and then you turn around and get mad. People tell you not yet, and you turn around and you do exactly what they told you not to do. Um, I remember this one particular case, and we're going to get ready to get up out of here. I remember this one particular case where, what is this gnat? Yucky. But I remember this one particular case where I have a mentorship program. Just so you know, we're going to be hosting another meeting for our mentorship. For those who want to be mentored by me, we're hosting another meeting on October 18th. You will have to sign up. One of the moderators, please, if you have the link posted in here, but you will have to sign up for an interest meeting. Sign up to come to the interest meeting where you can be interviewed to be a part of the mentorship program. But I've had plenty of people that have come into the program that they have a goal in mind, right? And sometimes their goal, which is why we started doing interest meetings, because some people will come into the program with the intent of getting direct access to me. And I'm like, that's not what you get. You get in the program, you're coming in there for wisdom. You're saying, I want to grow. I want to heal. I want to mature. That's what you're getting. You're not getting my phone number. You're not going to get an everlasting counseling session. You're not going to pocket pastor me or nothing like that. But you will have people that come in and they go through the interest meeting, pretend that that's not what they want. Hear with them giving the instructions, saying, hey, this is what the program is about. This is what you're getting in it. This is what you're not getting in it. All of that kind of stuff. And then get up in there and they get a team lead. And when they get under their team lead, they start acting up, right? They start complaining about everything. I didn't get access to this. I didn't get access to this. I never got this email. Line. I can look on the back end and see that it shows me that they not only got the email, it shows me how many times they opened it or what have you. And I say to the team lead, she got the email. She opened it seven times. Matter of fact, she opened for the last 3 days. She's been opening it. When I see a person doing that, I already know the objective. The objective is access. That person is acting a donkey because they think that that's going to draw me out. And the objective in this, unfortunately, in many cases, is if I draw you out, they think they'll get on the phone with me so they can say, I'm sorry, I'm just not that technological. I'm not that tech savvy. And then I've been going through so much stuff. You don't even understand what the stuff I've been going through. My dad was like this, my mama was like this, and all that. And I said, that is not how you get therapy. You cannot bully your way into a therapy session. You cannot manipulate your way into a therapy session. You cannot throw a tantrum and get what you want. These are forms of unhealthy communication. These are forms of unhealthy communication. Sister E, thank you. Sister E posted up, for those of you who want to join to be a part of our next interest meeting, this is the link right here. All right. That's the link right there. So be sure to join it. Snapshot. I won't say snapshot. I'll say copy and paste it because you're not going to remember all them numbers at the end. But that is but We have people that come in and do that. These are forms of unhealthy communication. Is, hey, I'm gonna do whatever I gotta do to get what it is I feel like I need to get, because in my mind, I believe that if I get access, if I get this, then my life will be easier, my life will be better. No, I said this earlier and I'll say it again. No, it when people get that desperate, it's not in most cases them trying to get access, is their demons. I got a sister in Christ who is a therapist who's Christian. Um, Sister Eve, do you have Sister Pastor Shan's link? I told her I was gonna start showing, putting the link up. We used to put her link up all the time on the channel, but she, and if you don't, I can post it up. Let me see. You might beat me. This is her link. I think this is her link for those of you who need Christian therapy. Thank you, sis. She, here's that's going to be an actual link right there. All right. Thank you, Sister Eve. That's your, if you need Christian therapy, this is a sister in Christ of mine. This is a friend. She's actually one that motivated me. We were talking and we were having a conversation or what have you about unhealthy communication styles, what have you. And that's who I was talking to. But that is a friend and a sister in Christ of mine. So I would say book her for Christian therapy. She will be really, really helpful in helping you to learn how to communicate in an effective way. Learning how to better gauge your expectations. Some relationships are destroyed because you have too heightened expectations, and there is no option for no for you, and that becomes control. And you got to understand, whenever you come in with that level of pride, whenever you come into a relationship with that level of meanness, it gives nobody, it doesn't give the other party space for them to be themselves. And that's why you'll find that a lot of people may be avoidant, or you may not have healthy relationships or what have you, is because you may have an unhealthy or an ungodly, toxic, demonic communication style. It can be changed. You can be changed, but it's gonna start with, one, the Word of God. Two, making sure that you address or first acknowledge that you have an unhealthy communication style. Three, putting the work in. Okay, putting the work in, making sure that you get the therapy, and being intentional about it, being consistent. One therapy session is not going to cure a year or a whole lifetime of toxicity. So that's something that you're going to have to make a practice out of. You want to have a therapist and not just therapy. Does that make sense? Not just therapy. A lot of people think that I'm going to have me 1, 2, 3 therapy sessions and that should fix me. You got 24, 5, 6, 24, 46, 85 years of being toxic. One therapy session, five therapy sessions are probably not going to be enough. You're going to have to learn different tools and different trades. You're going to have to learn different ways to address a conversation. You're going to have to learn how to go to a conversation, go to a relationship, and understand that, hey, it's a transaction. In a relationship, you're giving me what you got, the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding you got, and I'm giving you what I got. In a relationship, is basically you strengthening, right? We agree on some things and we strengthen, but at the same time, there are some areas that I'm ignorant in that you can pour into me, and there are some areas where you're ignorant, I can pour it into you. That's what relationship is. It's not a relationship when you have to have your way. It's not a relationship when things have to be a certain way for you. It's not a relationship when you're in control. It's only a relationship when everybody involved has the ability to be themselves. Not saying that you get to be toxic, not saying that you get to say, well, this is just who I am. No, because in that's you saying that people got to deal with your toxicity. But it is to say, being different is actually very beautiful. Having a difference of opinion is actually very beautiful, right? Iron sharpens iron is actually beautiful. It's all in how you look at it. If you look at it like they disagreeing with me, which means they don't like me, which means they probably had a conversation about me, that's unhealthy. But if you look at it like, this was a fun conversation because I see her point of view or I see his point of view. And it's funny, but this is my point of view. I've had plenty of conversations with people that we didn't agree. And it was probably some of my favorite conversations because there was no arguing. There was no raising of the voice or anything. It was hilarity. It was just people sitting around having a conversation and sharing their view. And hear me, people learn from those type of conversations, because those conversations make you have to listen more than you speak, right? Because you're having to listen to a difference of opinion, and you're having to see, oh, okay, now I see it from a different perspective. So it may not change your mind in its entirety. Sometimes it will, but it may give you a another way to look at a thing. And this also helps to make you more sympathetic and more empathetic towards people. All right. I love you guys. Just for those of you in Atlanta, Georgia, I will keep you posted. I am getting ready to open up the vault in 7 days. We're gonna be meeting up at the vault, having Bible study, all of that kind of stuff. It's not a church, but we are the church. But we're gonna start off with Bible study, and we got some more stuff coming up. So stay tuned. Anywho, love you. I'll talk to you soon.